Chapter 457. Long Yunzhan could tell that Dimo Xian was intentionally saying that he was watching with folded arms. The motive was to warn himself that he was Yi Qing Luo's future husband. But why would Dimo Xian give him such a warning? Long Yunzhan frowned, unable to understand. "You. What nonsense are you talking about?" Yi Qing Luo raised her fist and pounded on Dimo Xian's chest. Even she could feel that Dimo Xian was intentionally targeting Long Yunzhan. "Am I talking nonsense?" Dimo Xian's 5 fingers clasped her lower jaw, his long and narrow peach blossom eyes were filled with spring water. "In future we will get married and I will become your husband, don't tell me." "Shouldn't I be the future husband?" Yi Qing Luo's face was flushed red uncontrollably. Her hands clutched Dimo Xian's lapel. In order to conceal the heat on her face, she bit her pink lips and whispered, "Who can tell what will happen in the future? Also, why are you saying this in front of the class leader and the others? You might be shameless but I'm not. These are all your brothers. I want them to bear witness." Dimo Xian's eyes overflowed with smiles as he caught hold of Yi Qing Luo's little hand which was randomly pounding on him, as he brought it to his lips and kissed it. I saw a scene of dogs being abused as soon as I got here. My eyes are going blind. If I knew this would happen, I would have gone one more round. Madame Qing Luo and the Arch are always abusing the dogs whenever they don't get along. Not far away, the exaggerated howls of the youths could be heard. Dimo Xian had changed his looks and Yi Qing Luo had specially instructed them not to call him Overlord outside. These youths directly called him the Arch. They had arranged to meet Yi Qing Luo at the tea house in 1 hour and when they arrived, they saw the Overlord holding onto Madame Qing Luo's hand. That kiss was so beautiful that it made people want to draw this scene. Yi Qing Luo hurriedly withdrew her hand as she stared at Dimo Xian in annoyance and struggled to get up from his arms, pretending as though nothing had happened as she rushed towards those youngsters. "What have you all bought? Let me take a look." Dozens of youths waved the spoils of war in their hands, their faces full of smiles. The students of the Devil class gathered at the tea house one by one. The huge tea house was soon filled to the brim. There were also many people standing outside the tea house, holding their teacups. They were talking about the things they had bought. Yi Qing Luo bought some paper and brush from the art stall opposite the tea house and pasted their names on the items which these youngsters had bought and placed them into the profound phoenix ring in batches. While listening to their conversation, it seemed that apart from her, Tong Ziqing and the other two, no one else had encountered the black merchants of the predators. Yi Qing Luo tidied up the youngsters' purchases and the group prepared to head towards the mercenary association. Yi Qing Luo settled the bill with the tea house boss and walked behind. She had just walked out of the tea house when she saw the opposite art stall owner holding onto 2 scrolls as he walked towards Yi Qing Luo. "Young lady, you're the first child who dared to lay a hand on the Iron Blood warriors. Those of us who set up stalls in the marketplace have been bullied by them, so your actions today have helped us to vent our anger." He passed the scroll to Yi Qing Luo with both hands. "This is a little token of my appreciation. I hope your team will become stronger and stronger." Yi Qing Luo opened one of the paintings and after she saw what was drawn on it, her cheeks flushed red instantly as she furiously closed the scroll and stuffed it into Dimo Xian's arms. Following that, her little figure scuttled towards the group in front. The art stall owner couldn't help but burst out laughing as he gazed at the direction where Yi Qing Luo disappeared. "It's great to be young." Chapter 458. On the scroll, there was a man wearing half a mask, with a devastatingly beautiful woman in his arms. Although he was wearing a mask, but the pair of eyes that were revealed were like peach blossoms, making one intoxicated. Especially the contours of his chin, coupled with that pale thin lips, it was extremely alluring. No matter how one looked at it, it was filled with infinite peerless elegance. The man held the lady's slender jade hand as he placed it by his lips and kissed it. The lady's face was bashful as her pair of charming eyes rippled like spring water. The man's brows rose slightly as his eyes were filled with affection, as his entire face appeared extremely gentle. That gaze seemed to place the lady in his heart, doting and loving as though she was a treasure. On the side of the scroll there were a few flamboyant words, "Holding your hand, growing old together." Dimo Xian slowly closed the scroll, as his mind was filled with Yi Qing Luo's bashful face, as though she was escaping as his thin lips opened and closed, spilling out a few soft laughs. "Thank you, I will treasure it well." Dimo Xian raised his hand as he cupped his fist towards the stall owner, expressing his gratitude sincerely. The art stall owner took a panoramic view of Dimo Xian's expression and his face was filled with a satisfied smile. My greatest hobby is to preserve the world's most beautiful scenes forever, as long as you like it. Like I like it very much. After strolling one round in the marketplace, the youngsters' enthusiasm had yet to dissipate. In less than an hour, the group of them had already arrived at the Mercenary Association. Although it was just a branch of the Mercenary Association, but looking around within 100 miles radius, it was the Mercenary Association's territory. Majestic atmosphere, the glazed tiles under the sunlight, sparkling with luster. The 30-feet-tall door, open to both sides, was enough to accommodate 20 over people to enter at the same time. 2 guards wielding long spears, dressed in sturdy armor, stood upright, and one look and one knew that they were cultivators of mystic profound grade and above. On both sides of the guards, there were 2 statues of white tigers. That open mouth, revealing sharp fangs, was vivid and lifelike. Through the open door, one could see the main hall of the Mercenary Association. In front of the long queue, there was a row of 3 missions displayed on the wall, indicating various grades of missions. Mercenary group leaders lined up to receive missions. This was the first time the youths had seen such a splendid place. Each and every one of them raised their heads in amazement and stared at the Mercenary Union with widened eyes. This is too big. Was too dazzling. In the future, would they become one of them? They were so excited that their hearts were about to jump out of their mouths. Yiqing Luo looked at the youngsters' envious gazes as her lips curled into a warm smile. No matter, not too long later, you will own a place which is even more glorious than this place. The youngsters' gazes were resolute as they looked at Yiqing Luo. The hot blood in their bodies was already burning. We believe you. Yiqing Luo smiled as she strode towards the Mercenary Association's main entrance. Stop. With a stern shout, the 2 guards stretched out their long spears, blocking Yiqing Luo and the others' path. Yiqing Luo narrowed her eyes. Long Yunzhan frowned and looked at the 2 of them coldly. If you want to enter the Mercenary Union, each person has to pay 10 gold coins. The guard said expressionlessly. 10 gold coins? 10 per person? *CK. Was it really a good idea to rob the mercenary guild so openly? 10 per person and there were 60 over of them, that would be 600 over gold coins. No. Not right. This is robbery. Do you really think we don't know the Mercenary Association's regulations? Why haven't I heard that we need to pay gold coins to enter the Mercenary Association? Anai Ruapan shouted coldly. Ever since she found out that they were going to set up a mercenary group, Anai Ruapan specially inquired about some registration matters in the Mercenary Association, but she had never heard that they needed to pay gold coins to enter the Mercenary Association. Chapter 459. Now you have to pay the gold coins. The guard snorted coldly with an arrogant expression. If you can't pay the gold coins, then get lost, don't block the door. You. Anai Ruapan stomped her feet in anger. You guys are doing this on purpose. The guard swept a disdainful glance at her and finally set his sight on Yiqing Luo. After seeing Yiqing Luo's stunning face, an evil smile appeared on his face. Little beauty, it's not impossible to go in if you can accompany us brothers. Before the guard could finish his words, he felt a sharp pain coming from his mouth. Immediately, a thick smell of blood came from his mouth. He coughed violently and spat out a mouthful of blood and a few broken teeth. The other guard's face sunk as he immediately stabbed his long spear towards Yiqing Luo and bellowed, "How dare you create trouble in the Mercenary Association? Are you tired of living?" The guard who was beaten up had yet to pull him back. He didn't even see who was the one who gave the slap on his mouth and suffered it. These people were not people to be trifled with. Only, his teeth had fallen out from the slap and he couldn't even complete a simple sentence. The guard who rushed forward with the long spear was directly kicked out. He went through the main door and fell into the main hall of the Mercenary Association. The group of group leaders who were queuing up were stunned. The surrounding guards heard the news and a group of people immediately rushed over. The guard's internal organs were in pain from the fall and he spat out a few mouthfuls of blood. His fingers trembled as he pointed to the door and let out an "ah" sound. A group of guards looked towards the direction and saw 60 over young men and women standing at the door, and a guard who was covering his face and was in a sorry state. Very quickly, a captain dressed in a guard uniform with an additional badge on his shoulder and a few white feathers on his hat swiftly walked over. "Who's the one creating trouble in the Mercenary Association and looking down on the authority of the Mercenary Association? You're just in time. I'd like to ask, when do we have to pay 10 gold coins per person to enter the Mercenary Association?" Yiqing Luo sneered as her eyes turned sharp. That gaze was like a sharp knife, piercing over fiercely. The captain only felt a chill in his heart. He immediately looked at the guard who had his teeth broken. The guard covered his mouth. His hands were covered in blood. He shook his head furiously, feeling extremely wronged. The captain of the guards frowned as he led a team of guards towards Yiqing Luo. "This young lady, our guards are all specially selected guards and their quality is extremely high, so they will absolutely not lie." "So, you're saying that I'm deliberately causing trouble?" Yiqing Luo narrowed her eyes as she laughed softly. "I led a bunch of brothers to come all the way to the Mercenary Association, not to register a mercenary group but to create trouble." She raised her head, revealing a beautiful smile on her exquisite face. "Captain, give me a reason. What kind of enmity do I have with the mercenary union? I came all the way here just to cause trouble." The guard captain was rendered speechless by this question. He had worked here for dozens of years, and the Mercenary Association had always been a place that was highly respected by profound practitioners. This group of people who wore the same clothes and were about the same age were obviously here to register as a mercenary group. Normal people would not cause trouble in the mercenary guild. But, as the captain of the guards, he had extreme trust towards his own men. "The two of us guards have no enmity with you. There are so many people coming to the Mercenary Association to register as mercenary groups and to take on missions. Why are you the only one to pay gold coins?" Chapter 460. This question, I think it's more trustworthy to let your guard answer it. Yiqing Luo licked her lips as her lips curled into an enchanting cold smile. At the same time her figure flashed. Everyone only had time to see a black afterimage. By the time they fixed their eyes on her, Yiqing Luo had already appeared in front of that guard, with one hand clutching onto his neck. Her slender fingers clasped tightly onto his artery. The sharp fingertips made that guard felt a piercing pain on his neck. The guard wanted to struggle, trying his best to pull, but the force on his neck suddenly increased and his hand instantly went limp. His entire face was flushed red from suffocation. "Miss?" The guard captain's eyes congealed. To make a move on his subordinate right in front of him, this was simply looking down on his existence. The guard captain waved his palm and a group of guards immediately surrounded Yiqing Luo's direction. "Qing Luo." Yan Xiaoyi's face sunk as she was about to make a move. A clear voice was heard, "No need to fight, leave it to Lil Luo." Yan Xiaoyi was stunned as she frowned at Diamo Xian, but there are so many of them, no matter how powerful Qing Luo is, these are after all guards who had been through the battlefield. "If it's Lil Luo, there's absolutely no problem." His confident words caused the restless people to gradually calm down. Standing in front, the expressionless Long Yunzhan's expression congealed slightly. He had seen it all. Earlier, when that guard spoke obscenities to Yiqing Luo, the one who broke that guard's teeth was Diamo Xian. Thinking back to the marketplace, he used the excuse of being at the tea house, but in actual fact he was following behind Yiqing Luo, seeing her being surrounded by that magical beast core stall owner and 20 over Iron Blood warriors. At that time, Diamo Xian took action because the magical beast core stall owner attempted to molest Yiqing Luo. Suddenly Long Yunzhan seemed to have understood something. Diamo Xian wasn't watching by the side, nor was he standing in the crowd to watch. What Diamo Xian gave Yiqing Luo was free love. When Yiqing Luo had a conflict with others, Diamo Xian was more concerned than anyone else. But he let Yiqing Luo settle it. It was because of his trust towards Yiqing Luo, and also because he wanted to give her a chance to grow. "Captain, I just want to prove that we just want to register as a mercenary group." Yiqing Luo glanced sideways at the guard captain. "Or perhaps, Captain is trying to cover up your crime on behalf of your subordinate?" The captain of the guards who was charging forward immediately stopped in his tracks. Yiqing Luo's matter had already attracted the attention of the surrounding mercenary groups. At this moment they surrounded him and pointed at him. If he really forcefully took Yiqing Luo down, he was afraid the mercenary guild would never be able to wash away this stain. He waved his hand and ordered a group of people to stop. "What a sharp-tongued girl. Good. I'll give you this chance." The guard captain's eyes were filled with anger as he glared at the guard. "You explain to me clearly what exactly is going on." The guard groaned in pain. His mouth was burning with pain and his neck was suffocating. He blushed and shook his head furiously. Yiqing Luo's fingers loosened a little as her lips curled into a chilly smile. "Speak, say every single word clearly. If there's any falsehood in your words, this lady will take your dog life right now." If it wasn't for the fact that she was leading a group of brothers today, and had already put on their group's uniform, Yiqing Luo couldn't be bothered to go through so much trouble. They were a team. A team that wanted to register as a mercenary group. Before the registration there must not be any stain. Chapter 461. Captain, save me. She's despising the Mercenary Association's authority. The guard endured the pain as he spat out every single word. Because he was missing a tooth, his words were leaky and his words were unclear. But if he listened carefully he would be able to understand his words. We were just stopping them to do a routine interrogation. But she made a move. Captain, save me. The guard captain narrowed his eyes. What else do you have to say now? Still not letting him go. You're at death's door and still want to cover up for the mastermind? Have you forgotten who is your master? Yi Qing Luo's fingers suddenly clenched tightly as that pair of enchanting eyes were filled with a thick austere aura. Her chilly laughter was as though the god of death had descended. Really pitiful, this captain who was worried about your life. Just for a little bit of benefit, he didn't hesitate to cheat the captain who had always trusted you. This kind of dog, you don't need it. The lady's voice was sweet and melodious. But that tone was filled with a thick murderous aura. The guard felt the life force in his body gradually disappearing. He opened his eyes wide in terror as he subconsciously looked towards the captain whose face was filled with rage. His heart was filled with shock and Yi Qing Luo's earlier words were lingering in his ears. The guard's lips trembled. I'll say. By the time Yi Qing Luo let go, the guard spat out the words with difficulty. It's the Iron Blood Warriors. He gave us 10 silver coins and asked us to stop. Sister, be careful. Behind, Kitty Lee's panicked voice was heard. Yi Qing Luo's peripheral vision saw a glaring ray coming towards her as she sensitively let go of the guard and instantly retreated a few steps backwards. She saw that guard lying limply on the ground. A dagger was stabbed into his chest. Although the guard was no longer breathing, but before he died he said the words, Iron Blood Warriors, which was clearly heard by everyone. The guard captain ran up and carried the guard up with one hand. On seeing the dagger on the guard's chest, his expression sunk and turned extremely ugly. Iron Blood Warriors. They were actually from the Iron Blood Warriors. When did these young lads and Iron Blood Warriors get into conflict? Dagger. Yi Qing Luo's eyes narrowed as her lips curled in ridicule. Throwing a dagger to silence him was indeed Yu Qipeng's method. She had roughly guessed in her heart that the mastermind behind these two guards looking for trouble was Yu Qipeng. But she was very curious why Yu Qipeng stopped her from entering the Mercenary Association. You guys again? Duke Jing also saw Yi Qing Luo and the smile on his face instantly turned into anger as he pointed at Yi Qing Luo and howled, You're really like a lingering spirit that won't go away. Chapter 462. The surrounding guards received the order and immediately released their profound qi. These guards were all cultivators who were carefully selected by the guard captain. All of their profound qi were at Mystic Profound 3rd grade and above. The highest had even reached Mystic Profound 7th grade. It was rumored that the Mercenary Association's guards numbered up to 1,000 and above. Cultivators with this kind of ability, with 1,000 over gathered together to protect the Mercenary Association's order, which ordinary person would dare to create trouble here? Yi Qing Luo's lips curled into a chilly smile as her raging flame feather fan swayed gently. It was like a ball of leaping flame on her fingertips, burning continuously as it released a splendid color. The guard captain's vision fell onto that strange feather fan as his eyes instantly felt a piercing pain. His heart started to surge with uneasiness, but Yu Qipeng had already walked to his side, bearing a faint smile as he gazed at him. Duke Jing puffed out his chest as he gesticulated, Quickly go. Let's see how long this bunch of sluts can be arrogant for. Give them a good thrashing. Give them a good thrashing. The guard captain forcefully suppressed the uneasiness in his heart. Now that things had come to such a state, he could only brace himself and forcefully bring these people to the enforcement room. Yi Qing Luo's vision went one round around the guards and her 5 fingers moved as she was about to strike. Suddenly, a calm and clear voice was heard from behind. This young patriarch wants to see how the upright and plain-spoken, fair and just guard captain is pressured by the Iron Blood Warriors to take action against innocent people. Those guards who had already dashed in front of Yi Qing Luo, upon hearing this voice, all of them tensed up as they subconsciously retracted their hands. When Devil Class's youngsters heard this voice, they all started to retreat as they turned back to look. They saw a lake-colored brocade long robe, with a refined and handsome appearance, playing with a green flute as he strolled over. As he walked, the young man twirled the green flute as his icy cold gaze fixed onto Yu Qipeng. What a good Iron Blood Warrior, your guts aren't small at all. You even dare to threaten the Mercenary Association's guard captain. This young patriarch wants to go to the Yuchi family and ask Patriarch Yuchi personally, since when did your Yuchi family have the rights to criticize the mercenary association? When Yuchi Peng saw the approaching person, his expression congealed. The captain's face turned pale as he took a look at the gloomy Yuchi Peng behind him, and then looked at that young man who was already standing beside Yiqing Luo. The youth's words were like needles stabbing into the guard captain's body. The guard captain looked ashamed. Chapter 463. Duke Jing was in so much pain that his face turned white as he broke out in cold sweat. Lowly person, how dare you attack this king? I'm going to kill you. Kill you. He was in so much pain that he sucked in a breath of cold air. At the same time, he yelled at the predators behind him, why aren't you capturing this lowly commoner for this king? This prince will bring him back to the palace. However, none of those people dared to take even half a step forward. Yuchi Peng also lowered his head, pretending that he did not see this scene. Yiqing Luo's brows rose in interest as she kept her feather fan and returned to her own team. Who is this young man? He's not even afraid of offending his highness, but Yuchi Peng is as cowardly as a dog. Yen Shaoyi stared at the youth, her eyes filled with curiosity. Nai Rua Pan bit her lips as she pondered for a moment. I've investigated before, the Mercenary Association's president is surnamed Mo and Yuchi Peng calls him Young Master Mo. Then this person should be the president's son, the Mercenary Association's Young Master Mo Hans Hang. The Young Master of the Mercenary Guild? No wonder Yuchi Peng was terrified. Yen Shaoyi blinked her eyes and her lips curled into a teasing smile. No matter how powerful eldest young Master Yuchi is, if he wants to establish a mercenary group and mingle in the mercenary union, in front of young Master Mo, he has to behave himself and be honest. Yiqing Luo laughed lightly. These words were indeed true. Although Yuchi Peng was the first young master of one of the four great profound practitioner clans, the Yuchi family, Yuchi Peng's strength was far from ordinary. But in the mercenary guild, he could only be the leader of the predators. If he were to walk out of the mercenary association and not establish any mercenary group, then his status would be above Mo Han Shang's. But, he wanted the Iron Blood Warriors, he wanted this mercenary group. Then Mo Han Shang would be his superior, and he had the rights to tell Yuchi Peng what to do. This was the authority of the mercenary union. Qing Luo, do you know young Patriarch Mo? Yen Shaoyi asked curiously. Yiqing Luo shook her head. If he doesn't know us, then why would he help us? Yiqing Luo shrugged her shoulders, indicating that she had no solution. Mo Han Shang's appearance was not within her expectations. But from the looks of it, Mo Han Shang didn't have any ill intentions towards them. His vision then turned towards Mo Han Shang and the others. With one hand placed behind his back, his posture was elegant and calm as his eyes were filled with ridicule as he glanced sideways at Duke Jing, who was hugging his hands and crying out. He was very calm, completely disregarding the other party's identity. That's right, the predators are really amazing. Mo Han Shang's rosy red lips curled slightly as a cold arc of ridicule flashed past. Since the Iron Blood Warriors are so powerful, I believe that eldest young Master Yuchi doesn't need the Mercenary Association, and will be able to build your own team. When these words came out, Yuchi Peng's face completely darkened. He took large strides to Duke Jing's side as he lifted his clothes and threw it towards the group of members behind him. Young Lord Mo, Duke Jing has just left the palace and doesn't know anything about the outside world. If he had offended young Lord Mo, I apologize on his behalf. Duke Jing? Mo Han Shang narrowed his eyes as he shot a glance at Duke Jing's direction as he scoffed. No wonder eldest young master was so arrogant these few days. So you've colluded with the imperial family. These words made Yuchi Peng's face turn green and white. Since Duke Jing's brain isn't working well, then this young patriarch shall be magnanimous and not be calculative with you. Mo Han Shang seemed as though he didn't see Yuchi Peng's gloomy expression as he continued talking. Let's do it like this, eldest young master Yuchi. Just apologize to these people and beg for their forgiveness and this matter will be over. Chapter 464. The surrounding mercenary groups all sucked in a breath of cold air. Most of the mercenaries had heard of the predators before. Let's not talk about the reputation of the Iron Blood Warriors outside. Just recently, Yuchi Peng had been recruiting cultivators and even hooked up with Duke Jing to inject funds into the mercenary group. It was obvious that they were going to register a mercenary group. The other mercenary groups would naturally pay more attention and understand them. Hence, they had some understanding of Yuchi Peng's way of doing things. Asking him to apologize to this group of unknown brats? Do I have to beg for their forgiveness? This was no different from slapping him in the face in front of everyone. Yu Qipeng had just registered his mercenary group today, and if he were to apologize to Yiqing Luo and the others and beg sincerely, then the Iron Blood Warriors would not be able to raise their heads in the mercenary association in future. But Emohan Shang was obviously grabbing onto Yu Qipeng and not letting go. This sentence seemed reasonable, but in reality, it forced Yu Qipeng into a dilemma. One was to offend Emohan Shang. One was the pride of the predators. Right now, Yu Qipeng's heart was filled with resentment. Why did Emohan Shang suddenly appear to help that bunch of brats? What was the identity of this group of young men and women? Yu Qipeng thought back to when he was in the marketplace. He had handpicked over 100 profound practitioners, but in front of the 4 young ladies, they were so weak that they could not even withstand a single blow. Their tacit cooperation was as if they knew each other's movements. This was definitely not a tacit understanding that could be developed overnight. At that time, he only wanted to register as a mercenary group so that he could be the first to take on the new rare mission. After seeing the 4 girls' skills, in order to save time and register as a mercenary group as soon as possible, he stopped in time. Yu Qipeng saw that these young girls were dressed in the same attire, and there were many young boys and girls in the same attire walking back and forth. And the only way to the market was through the mercenary guild. Yu Qipeng guessed that these youngsters wanted to register as a mercenary group. Because of this, he made use of his own identity and sufficient benefits to bribe the 2 guards, preventing Yiqing Luo and the rest from entering the mercenary association to register their mercenary group. A strong intuition told Yu Qipeng that if these people were to register as a mercenary group, it would definitely become a hindrance to the predators. He had painstakingly spent a huge amount of energy and money to build the predators. They vowed to become the #1 mercenary group in the world. He would not allow anything to go wrong. Everything was going according to plan. But out of nowhere, Emohan Shang this Qing Yaojin appeared. What? Young Master Yuqi is unwilling? Emohan Shang's brows rose as he teasingly curled his thin lips. I, Emohan Shang, hate people who play tricks in my mercenary association the most. He paused, the smile on his face revealing a bit of eerie coldness. In particular, eldest young Master Yuqi killed my guard in front of my face. When Emohan Shang said to this point, he intentionally dragged out the last syllable as he stopped his voice. The corners of Yu Qipeng's mouth twitched, his entire body trembling incessantly from anger. No matter how good he usually was at hiding his emotions, he could not hide the anger on his face at this moment. Young Master Yuqi, even if you stare your eyes out, it won't help. Emohan Shang gave a cold laugh as his voice suddenly turned as cold as ice, bribing the guards in the mercenary association, obstructing other groups from registering as mercenary groups, and even killing the guards just based on these 2 points. This young patriarch has the authority to chase you out of the mercenary association. You'll be blacklisted by the mercenary union. Chapter 465. In other words, the Predator mercenary group was destroyed, completely destroyed. Young Master Emo, no matter what, I am the young master of the Yuqi family. You should at least give face to the Yuqi family. The veins on Yu Qipeng's forehead bulged as he clenched his fists tightly, enduring the anger that filled his chest. I spit. Emohan Shang spat out fiercely as he gave a disdainful snort. Face? If this young lord were to kill someone from your Yuqi family and then ask you for face, would you King give me face? Yu Qipeng's face flushed red, his eyes filled with malice. You don't give Yu Qipeng face, but you have to give this king face. This duke is Uncle Monarch's most doted duke. When Duke Jing heard that, he hurriedly opened his throat to roar. Emohan Shang sneered, your face is even less valuable. Duke Jing's expression instantly changed as he bared his fangs and brandished his claws as he pounced towards Emohan Shang. Yu Qipeng forcefully held him back as he ordered the Iron Blood Warriors members to grab hold of Duke Jing. Just as he was in a terrible predicament, a clear and melodious voice rang out, Young Master Emo, why don't you give me some face and leave this matter to me? At the entrance of the mercenary guild, a woman in a black outfit walked in. A sweet smile blossomed on her face. Her appearance was stunning, and her temperament was extraordinary. Especially that pair of enchanting eyes, which shone with an intoxicating charm. Yu Qipeng frowned and stared coldly at the girl in front of him. With a single glance, he recognized that she was the most ruthless woman in the marketplace. Yiqing Luo calmly met Captain Qipeng's gaze, step by step, walking gracefully and slowly, unperturbed. The instant Emohan Shang saw Yiqing Luo, the cold arrogance on his face, turned into a handsome and clean smile. Since young miss has opened your mouth, this young patriarch naturally has to give it to you, so I'll leave it to you to handle. If eldest young Master Yuchi isn't willing to accept your handling, then let this young patriarch handle it personally. He emphasized the last 4 words. Clearly he was warning Yuchi Peng. Or follow Yiqing Luo's instructions. Otherwise he would follow his method and enter the blacklist. The surrounding mercenary groups stared at Yiqing Luo in astonishment, as they were totally certain that Mo Hanshang's appearance this time round was to stand up for Yiqing Luo. Everyone was silently guessing, what was this Yiqing Luo's identity? From her looks, could it be that young Master Mo was young Master Mo Hanshang? When this thought flashed past their minds, many mercenary groups started. From how Mo was protecting this young lady, there was this possibility. Yiqing Luo didn't bother about what the others thought. Yiqing Luo couldn't be bothered to guess why Mo Hanshang helped her. Yi Dragon Master Yang Shang Li, she said. Yi God, he did, said. Yi, he said, Yu I said, he. With that said, she shook her head with a look of pity. Young Master Yuchi, you just need to apologize to my party and hand over the first mission you've accepted. That will do. Yi. Chin. Chiyu. Ling. He thought. He. To. Apparently, he was anxious to register his mercenary group in the Mercenary Association. From those stall owners' words, it was obvious that Iron Blood Warriors had existed for a long time. They had never registered their mercenary group. But at this moment the reason was so urgent. There was a possibility that Yuchi Peng had heard some news, and there would be a mission today which made Yuchi Peng interested. Chapter 466. As expected, after she mentioned Yuchi Peng handing over the mission, Yuchi Peng's expression turned steely green. That pair of venomous eyes stared fiercely at Yiqing Luo. Yiqing Luo's long eyelashes fluttered as she innocently tilted her head. Eldest young Master Yuchi, why are you staring at me for? I'm giving you a way out of this embarrassing situation. If you're not willing, then just treat it as though I didn't say anything. That spirited eyes twinkled as they were clear and moist. That look, no matter how one looked at it, it seemed as though she was doing the Iron Blood Warriors good, especially making a compromise. When the surrounding mercenary group saw the young lady's aggrieved look, their sympathy immediately overflowed as they all stood up for Yiqing Luo. This young lady has already taken a step back. Eldest young Master Yuchi, you should also take a step back. It's just a mission, giving it to this young lady to protect your own mercenary group isn't a huge loss. The Iron Blood Warriors killed people in the Mercenary Association and instigated the guards to stop these young ladies from entering the Mercenary Association. This has already violated the Mercenary Association's regulations and can totally be blacklisted. Iron Blood Warriors are taking advantage of us? It wasn't easy for this young lady to establish a mercenary group. As the eldest young master of the Yuchi family, why must he be calculative with a young lass? These mercenary groups were mostly boorish and boorish people. On one side was a mercenary group with a strong backing and the royal family's investment. On the other side, there was a small group of yellow profound realm Shen practitioners who had come out of nowhere. Naturally, everyone's scales were tilted towards the weaker side. Especially when Yiqing Luo's looks were peerless and she put on an innocent look. How would these mercenary groups remember the scene of Yiqing Luo interrogating the guards earlier? The crowd's discussions made Yuchi Peng's face turn steely green and gradually turn pale. Yuchi Peng was very clear on how important reputation was to a mercenary group. If he were to give up on the Iron Blood Warriors and never step into the Mercenary Association ever again, he absolutely could not do it. The Iron Blood Warriors had spent so much effort and only he himself knew the hardships involved. How could he bear to? But this mission. Rare grade mission. If he were to hand it over, wouldn't it be a waste of time for him to bring his team to the Mercenary Union to register? Yuchi Peng, I feel that what they said makes sense. Duke Jing was grabbed by a few members and by now, he had calmed down quite a bit as he finally became smart for once. Think about it, apologize and hand over this mission. At least our Iron Blood Warriors will be saved. There would always be rare missions in the future. But if we really let young Master Mo blacklist the Predator, we won't be able to keep our current mission. Duke Jing's words were right on point. Yuchi Peng naturally understood this logic. But, if they apologized, they would be lowering their heads to a small, unknown team. The reputation and prestige of the Predators would be greatly damaged. It also indirectly admitted that the Predators were causing trouble in the Mercenary Guild. This stain would always be with the Predators. Even if the Predators became the #1 mercenary group in the future, it would become a dark history for others to laugh at. As for this small team, But because of his magnanimity today, his name would spread throughout the mercenary world. Famous, a good reputation. Yu Qipeng's pupils suddenly constricted. He suddenly raised his head and stared at Yiqing Luo's bright smiling face as his heart tightened. Chapter 467. Emo Han Shang's appearance gave Yiqing Luo a chance. Eldest young Master Yuqi and Duke Jing's face was something which Emo Han Shang totally disregarded. But unfortunately, the minute Yiqing Luo opened her mouth, Emo Han Shang was beaming with joy, and he even stood up for Yiqing Luo without any reason. Yiqing Luo's solution sounded as though she was wholeheartedly thinking for the Iron Blood warriors. She only wanted to turn the big problem into a small one and the small one into nothing. Moreover, she put on a saintly look, willing to forgive everything which they had done. But in actual fact, the one who benefited the most from this matter was Yiqing Luo's group. Not only had they obtained this rare mission, they were also able to create a good reputation for their own mercenary group. From today onwards, there would probably be many mercenary groups in the mercenary world who were willing to be on good terms with this mercenary group which was formed by young lads. As for himself, Iron Blood warriors was the staircase which Yiqing Luo had climbed up. Yu Qipeng asked himself that he was adept in scheming, but today, he had fallen into the hands of a young lass. Till now, he was still unable to tell that between Emo Han Shang and Yiqing Luo. Had they long known each other? His heart was filled with unwillingness, but Yu Qipeng could only bear with it. Finally he gave in. No matter what, the Iron Blood warriors must be preserved. Where there's life, there's hope. A bunch of kids who hadn't even grown their hair. He would deal with them in the future. Yu Qipeng clenched his teeth tightly as he took out a scroll from his bosom and threw it into Duke Jing's arms. Go! Duke Jing caught the scroll as he looked at Yu Qipeng in a daze. It took some time before he realized that he was asking him to apologize to Yiqing Luo. Persuading was one thing, but to ask him, a dignified duke, to lower his head and apologize was another matter. His wrist was broken by Emo Han Shang and he still wanted him to apologize? He had never suffered such humiliation in his entire life. Duke Jing, you're a duke and your face is bigger than mine. If you go, then it will show your sincerity. It will also show your status among the Iron Blood warriors. Yu Qipeng saw that Duke Jing's expression wasn't right as he lowered his voice and said that. Duke Jing was coaxed till he was elated and immediately had no more opinions. Holding the scroll, he walked towards Yiqing Luo and Duke Jing directly passed it over with a black face. The mission is for you and, for today's matter, this duke represents the Iron Blood warriors to apologize to you. What a simple-minded fellow. Yiqing Luo snorted coldly and kept the scroll in her hand. She hadn't established a mercenary group yet, so she couldn't open the mercenary guild's mission scroll. Earlier Duke Jing and Yu Qipeng's conversation, she had heard it all. It seemed like her guess was right. The reason why Yu Qipeng hurriedly registered his mercenary group was because of this mission. Rare quest. He didn't know what level the mission was. But looking at the general standard of the Iron Blood warriors, these youths in Devil class were definitely above them. Since Yu Qipeng dared to accept this mission, he definitely had a well-thought-out plan. Since that was the case, the youths in Devil class should also be able to complete it. Yiqing Luo kept the mission into her bosom as her eyes were filled with a smile. So Duke Jing is the Iron Blood warriors group leader. When Yu Qipeng heard this sentence, he gritted his teeth in anger. He took a deep breath. His expression was stiff and ashen as he walked over with large strides. His pair of cold eyes were filled with a biting cold killing intent. I, the leader of the Iron Blood warriors, apologize to your team. A sneer flashed past Yiqing Luo's eyes. Chapter 468. Say. What could he say? What else could he say? He had many objections. However, he could only suppress these objections in his heart. This little slut, did she think that with Emo Han Shang as her backing, she could do whatever she wanted? Look at that expression. If I didn't know better, I would have thought that eldest young Master Yuqi was preparing to find someone to kill me after I leave the Mercenary Association, to snatch the mission scroll. Yiqing Luo pursed her pink lips, as her quick-witted eyes were mixed with a sliver of fear. The surrounding mercenaries nodded in agreement. This kind of thing was not unheard of. Everyone could tell that Yu Qipeng's emotions were currently in a violent rage. Apparently he had a deep grudge against Yiqing Luo. In front of Emo Han Shang, in order to ensure that his Iron Blood warriors could continue on, he would lower his head to Yiqing Luo. But what if he left the mercenary guild? How is that possible? Yu Qipeng's face darkened, and he had the embarrassment of having his thoughts seen through. He shifted his gaze and raised his voice as he roared in panic. I, Yuchi Peng, am the eldest young master of the Yuchi family. I still have this bit of credibility. Yiqing Luo's lips curled into a cold smile. She was waiting for Yuchi Peng to say this sentence. Mo Han Shang's palms clapped as he placed it on Yuchi Peng's shoulder. Since that's the case, this young patriarch will believe you. In future, if anything happens to this bunch of young mercenary groups, this young patriarch will just place all these onto the Iron Blood warriors. That's the happy decision. The veins on Yuchi Peng's forehead throbbed. His face was completely devoid of any color. His eyes were already burning with rage, shooting out an intense fury. This was simply going too far. Just by looking at Yiqing Luo, who was the leader, one could tell that if this mercenary group was really established, it would absolutely not be a group that knew their place. In the future he would definitely make many enemies. What's more, as a mercenary group, it was inevitable that something unexpected would happen when they were on a mission. Could it be that the predators had to take the blame for all this? This was simply forcing them, the Iron Blood warriors, to protect Yiqing Luo and the others' safety. Too treacherous. Too sinister. Mo Han Shang seemed as though he couldn't see Yuchi Peng's rage burning as he directly turned his head towards Yiqing Luo, and his voice was clear and bright. Young lady, aren't you going to register your mercenary group? Go and line up with your brothers. Yiqing Luo cupped her hands in greeting as her lips curled into a grateful smile. Many thanks to young Patriarch Mo for being impartial and selfless, helping us brothers to obtain the opportunity to register a mercenary group. Chapter 469. Long Yunzhan was slightly stunned. Looking at Yiqing Luo's outstretched hands, his heart inexplicably sped up. Strange, why was his face suddenly burning up? He was a human dragon and by right, his body temperature should always maintain a certain temperature. How could it possibly be burning up? Long Yunzhan was still in a daze when Yen Xiaoyi used her elbow to nudge him. Class monitor, what are you in a daze for? Are you too happy? Long Yunzhan instantly regained his senses as his azure blue eyes blinked. Suddenly he realized something as his gaze shot towards Yiqing Luo's direction, and following that, he raised his eyes to look at the man beside him. Diamo Shen's eyes were calm as he crossed his arms in front of his chest, and a pair of bewitching peach blossom eyes stared at Yiqing Luo. That gaze seemed to be able to see everything in the world, and he could only see Yiqing Luo alone. Long Yunzhan's heart twitched fiercely with an indescribable strange feeling. He frowned. Why was it that recently his body seemed to be not right? Especially after Yiqing Luo was assassinated and he revealed his blue dragon original form to save Yiqing Luo, something was amiss. Could it be was because he had transformed into a blue dragon? Long Yunzhan bore with this strange feeling as he walked towards Yiqing Luo's direction. Standing beside Yiqing Luo, he slowly raised his eyes. His gaze was extremely indifferent and his voice was as indifferent as usual. I had always wanted to bring my brothers to charge out for the #1 spot that belongs to us, to let you stand at the highest point and announce to the world that you are absolutely not trash. That calm voice, when he said these words, the excitement and joy on the youngsters' faces started to burn even more. Now, it's time for us to take the first step towards our goal, to establish a mercenary group that belongs to us, our home. The youngsters' trembling voices once again rang deafeningly. We pledge our lives to follow group leader. The youngsters' four gazes met, and in each other's eyes, they saw the firm belief. They believed that one day in the future, they would be able to get rid of the title of trash and be revered by the world. This scene also influenced the surrounding mercenaries. What was the motive for everyone to establish a mercenary group in the first place? What was their original intention? After going through the wear and tear of time, experiencing the test of reality, in the end, the so-called mercenary group had already become a job to support their families. These youngsters were all emitting the ray of hope. He could see hope in them. Perhaps, after these youths formed their own mercenary group, they would be able to help them find the original intentions they had when they first formed their own mercenary group. Yiqing Luo's charming eyes were filled with smiles as she tugged Long Yunzhan's sleeve. Chapter 470. Because when Yiqing Luo raised her eyes, she saw those 60 over youngsters outside the main hall, staring at her fervently. Their eyes were filled with hope. They had passed their faith to Yiqing Luo. Suddenly there was a heavy feeling on his shoulders. However, this kind of heaviness made her feel satisfied. Yiqing Luo's gaze finally fell onto Diamo Xian. Their four eyes met and she saw the gentleness and encouragement in Diamo Xian's eyes. This mercenary group's name would be decided by her. Yiqing Luo's pink lips trembled as her slightly trembling voice slowly rang. The world, we will carve out a world that belongs to us. Her smile grew bigger by the corner of her lips, enchanting like a blooming rose. I promise you a world. Her slender wrist lifted up as Yiqing Luo stretched out her index finger, and in midair, one stroke at a time, she wrote down the two words, the world. The World Group, the World Mercenary Group. This was their mercenary group's name. What they promised was the entire world. The youngsters' eyes sparkled as they clenched their fists and raised their arms up high, shouting excitedly, the World Mercenary Group. The World Mercenary Group. Our world. The deafening roar was filled with passion that infected one's heart. The surrounding mercenaries couldn't help but followed along and shouted out this name. The corners of Long Yunjian's mouth curled into a smile on his usually cold and indifferent face. He raised his pen and wrote the World Mercenary Group in the name column. The world. The world that Yiqing Luo promised. The world that belonged to them. After the mercenary group application form was filled, the registrar's information was stored in the Mercenary Association's memory stone. The memory stone flickered for a few times and a palm-sized badge surfaced. The registrar used a secret technique to draw on the badge twice before passing it over to Long Yunjian. This badge represented the World Mercenary Group symbol. The badge was worn by the group leader. This badge could be used to set up the vice group leader, law enforcement group leader, finance group leader, etc. Once it was set up, the badge would produce a badge which represented the setup position. The newly established mercenary group was an ordinary mercenary group, and the maximum number of people could only accommodate 100 people. Because of that, this group leader badge could at most produce 100 member badges, which included various positions. If a mercenary group wanted to be promoted to a bronze mercenary group, they would have to accept a mission, obtain mercenary group honor points, and then apply to the registrar for an upgrade. It was said that there were too many restrictions and regulations in a mercenary group. However, becoming a mercenary group was much more convenient than forming your own team and traveling around. The reason why Yiqing Luo chose to form a mercenary group from Devil classes students was because of convenience. With the badge, as long as they didn't leave Three Springs City, they could communicate with the mercenary group at any time. It was also commonly known as 1,000-mile sound transmission. However, conversing required strong mental power and profound energy. Moreover, when a mercenary group accepted a mission, they could obtain detailed information about the mission. For example, the mission location, difficulty, and the general situation of the mission would be clearly marked. This way, Long Yunjian only needed to consider the strength of the team and choose whether to accept the mission or not. At the very least, it was better than leading a group of people blindly out for experiential training. If the place they went for experiential training exceeded their expectations, their lives would be in danger. Moreover, after the mercenary group completed the mission, they would receive a generous reward from the person who issued the mission. These rewards weren't just money. There would also be many rare treasures, medicinal herbs, and pills. In short, there would definitely be rewards corresponding to the difficulty of the mission. Chapter 471. The World Group? Not bad, a good name. Mo Han Shang clapped his hands and praised, this world, this young patriarch is also interested. Do you want to count this young patriarch in? Everyone was stunned by his words. The dignified young master of the mercenary guild wanted to join an unknown mercenary group made up of a bunch of brats? Could it be that he was completely infected by the passion of these youths? If Mo Han Shang really joined this world mercenary group, then this mercenary group would be incredible. He could do whatever he wanted in the mercenary guild. At this moment, Yuchi Peng and the others who were standing by the side had ashen faces, as though they were about to explode. Mo Han Shang's intervention had already caused the Iron Blood warriors to completely lose their face. Even now, their faces were still burning with pain. Mo Han Shang actually wanted to join the mercenary group established by those youngsters? What kind of King luck did these little bitches have? If it was any other mercenary group, once they heard that the young master of the mercenary guild wanted to join their group, they would be overjoyed and welcome the young master to join. However, the young mercenaries who had won the first prize did not have the slightest bit of excitement on their faces. Yiqing Luo's eyes narrowed slightly as her slender brows creased, as she scrutinized Mo Han Shang. From the moment this person appeared, he stood on their side and stood up for her without any reason. Yiqing Luo didn't believe that it was because Mo Han Shang couldn't stand seeing people doing tricks in the Mercenary Association, or any other simple reason like that. No one will be good to you for no reason. This so-called good was a mixture of motives and benefits. Especially strangers. Yiqing Luo raised her eyes slightly. Give me a reason. The surrounding mercenaries were about to vomit blood. Damn it. Young Master Mo joining their mercenary group was like gold falling from the sky and smashing in front of them. What reason was there to ask? Directly put the badge on young Master Mo. Their inner roars didn't affect Yiqing Luo at all. As the group leader Long Yunzhan, with a pair of azure blue eyes, stared at Mo Hanshang indifferently, as though he was waiting for his reply. I was there too. I saw everything. Mo Hanshang's handsome brows twitched. The smile on his handsome face was very clean. Your way of doing things suits my taste. You saw everything? Did he see them fighting the predators? Alright, there's no problem in letting you join the world group. Yiqing Luo tilted her head and raised a finger, but because of your young patriarch Mo's identity, you must promise us a condition. What condition? After joining the world group, you will be an ordinary member of the world group. Mo Hanshang joining the world group was beneficial to the world group. Moreover, he was wholeheartedly trying to help her and had automatically raised the request to join the world group, so by right, Yiqing Luo should agree to it. However, the ugly words had to be said first. If Mo Hanshang were to make use of his mercenary association's young master's name to disrupt the world group's order, then, she would absolutely not fear this young master's identity. When he made his move, he would definitely not hold back. This condition made the surrounding mercenaries envious and jealous, but at the same time, they couldn't help but want to strangle Yiqing Luo to death. All of them sighed helplessly. Children were still children. Establishing a mercenary group was just for fun. Such a good opportunity was presented to him, but he didn't know how to grasp it and even wanted to negotiate with young Master Mo. If they were able to invite young Patriarch Mo into their own group, even if they were to give him the position of vice group leader, they would be willing. Just as everyone was sighing, they heard Mo Hanshang, who had an arrogant look when facing Yu Qipeng earlier, chuckling as he spat out 3 words, "No problem. Everyone, what the heck?" Chapter 472. After registering the mercenary group, Mo Hanshang invited them to use the Mercenary Association's guest hall to rest. The conference hall was large enough to accommodate about 400 people. Benches were arranged in rows around the room. The 60 or so youths found a place to sit. A dozen attendants came over with teacups and poured a cup of tea for everyone. Long Yunzhan took the commander's medal and split it into a vice commander's medal and an executive commander's medal. The rest were all member badges. After this vice group leader badge was taken out, the youngster's vision immediately shot towards Yiqing Luo. The mercenary group was suggested by Yiqing Luo, and ever since she joined the devil class, many principles were taught by Yiqing Luo. Yiqing Luo's kindness towards them was something that they could all see. Vice leader, Yiqing Luo was the most suitable candidate. Xiao Jin, who was seated opposite Yiqing Luo, hooked Yan Xiaoyi's shoulder with one hand as he shook his head and wailed, sighing, "This bunch of little brats, when Qing Luo wasn't around, they treated me like a treasure. But after Qing Luo came, I'm just a blade of grass." "Who asked you to be ugly?" Yan Xiaoyi rolled her eyes and slapped the hand on her shoulder. "Take it away. We're all men. What's wrong with a shoulder?" Xiao Jin felt the pain on the back of his hand. He covered his hand and retracted it. "You're like a girl. No wonder you also became a blade of grass. You're the King sissy. I am a woman to begin with. Who's a man with you?" Yan Xiaoyi stood up abruptly and slapped Xiao Jin's face that wasn't considered handsome. Xiao Jin stood up from the chair in shock, one hand covering his face while the other supporting himself on the chair in front of him. With a flip, he leaped over the long bench and rushed towards Long Yunzhan. "Look at you, how are you a woman? Boss, save me." The two's antics had livened up the atmosphere in the hall. The youngsters' faces were filled with radiant smiles as their gazes wandered between Yiqing Luo and Long Yunzhan. In his heart he was both excited and nervous. He had his own team, his own mercenary group, and his own belonging. However, at the same time they were nervous. He was worried that he wasn't strong enough, worried that he would drag down the entire team. Sitting on the bench and looking at the member medals piled up on the table, they became more and more nervous. Xiao Jin and Yan Xiaoyi's banter relaxed the moods of these youths considerably. The position of vice commander is too important. With my personality I can't take it. Yiqing Luo pushed the vice group leader badge towards Long Yunzhan's direction. "I'll be a small member, pass the vice group leader badge to Jin Zi." Don't. If you hand it over to me, this bunch of brats will definitely kill me." Xiao Jin waved his hand. "Just take it. I'm actually quite interested in this executive captain position." His eyes were sharp and his hands were fast. He directly reached out and took the medal of the executive commander in his hand. *CK. That's mine. Yan Xiaoyi's eyes narrowed and she immediately rushed towards Qiao Jin to snatch the executive regiment commander's medal. Qiao Jin waved the medal in his hand at her, the corners of his mouth hooking up in a proud smile as he put the medal on his chest. The medal suddenly emitted a blue light. In an instant, the light had already covered Qiao Jin. Sledging. Yan Xiaoyi was so angry that she gritted her teeth. After the medal was put on his chest, this medal was bound to Qiao Jin. Chapter 473. *CK. Scumbag Jin was indeed a scumbag. Yiqing Luo looked at this pair of quarrelsome lovers as she couldn't help but laughed. Xiaoyi, why don't I give you the assistant group leader's badge? In this way you will be his immediate boss. Qing Luo. You can't do this. Qiao Jin exclaimed. Yan Xiaoyi stared at Qiao Jin before retracting her vision and looking at Yiqing Luo. She shook her head. In order to be his top boss, we have to sacrifice ourselves. It's really not worth it. This kind of arduous task, it's better to leave it to you. In the end, the vice group leader's badge still landed in Yiqing Luo's hands. Right from the start, Yiqing Luo had only intended to be a small member in the mercenary group. After all, her personality was indeed not suitable for the position of vice leader. Qiao Jin and Yan Xiaoyi were at least members of the Devil Class's class committee. After managing the Devil Class for such a long time, they should be the most suitable candidates. Take it. A clear and cold voice suddenly entered his ears. Long Yunzhan, who was by her side, stared at Yiqing Luo indifferently. Everyone wishes for you to be the vice group leader and you have enough qualifications to be the vice group leader, so there's nothing suitable or not suitable about it. Yiqing Luo was just about to speak when her waist suddenly tightened and she had already been pulled into Dmo Xian's arms. Her face bumped into Dmo Xian's broad chest. Dmo Xian's other hand covered the back of her head. Lil Luo, no matter if it's a member or vice group leader, every single action of yours will represent the world group and this is something that cannot be avoided. The man's clear voice was as mellow as fine wine. That word by word actually expressed all the worries in Yiqing Luo's heart. After being together for so long, I believe your brothers must have some understanding of your personality. Since they chose you, it means that they trust you. You are a team, a mercenary team. Dmo Xian's fingers gently caressed Yiqing Luo's fine black hair. His actions were gentle and tender. No matter what you want to do in future, they will follow you, isn't that so? Yes. The 60 or so youths who were seated stood up one after another, their faces filled with determination. No matter what happens, we will always be a team. Somewhere in Yiqing Luo's heart seemed to have been struck by something as it gradually softened. Her eyes were filled with tears. Her long, curly eyelashes trembled slightly, bringing out a drop of crystal clear water. She pursed her lips tightly. After a long while, she reached out her hand and held the medal that symbolized her position as the vice regiment commander in her hand. Since everyone trusts me so much, then I shall not be unreasonable. Yiqing Luo's lips curled into a faint smile. Her slender fingers curled up the medal in her palm one by one. It was as if he wanted to brand the medal into his flesh and blood. When the youths saw that she accepted, they instantly let out a wave of cheers. Clear and sonorous voices resounded in the air above the living room. Vice Commander! Vice Commander! Vice Commander! The shouts gradually died down. Long Yunzhan looked down at the youths in uniform, and an extremely faint smile gradually appeared on his face. After some time he retracted his vision and returned to the main topic. Qing Luo, right from the start you've been eyeing the Iron Blood Warriors mission? Qiao Jin was still fooling around with Yan Xiaoyi when he heard about the mission. As for that mission, probably all the youths in the world group would want to know what it was. Based on Yiqing Luo's character, she actually only asked for a mission which the other party didn't know about and let them off. Although this had already made the other party lose face, and the ones who gained the advantage were them. Chapter 474. That mission is a rare mission. Yiqing Luo took out the mission scroll from her bosom as she placed it on the table. Her vision shot towards Imo Hanshang. Why don't young Patriarch Imo introduce what is called a rare mission? I've already joined the world group and now I'm an ordinary member of the world group. Why are you still calling me young Patriarch? Imo Hanshang's brows rose as half his body leaned on the long chair. Call me Hanshang, this way it will make us seem closer. Yiqing Luo complied with his intention. All right, Hanshang. As everyone knows, the Mercenary Association's missions are split into several grades according to the mercenary group's ability. Low grade, intermediate grade, high grade and complicated grade missions. And among these grades, they are further divided into experience training missions and rare missions. Saying that, Mo Han Shang stood up as he walked to the center of the guest hall. He opened up his arms as he spoke excitedly. Experience training missions are the more common grade missions. Even if it's accepted by other mercenary groups today, there will be a new employer who will issue the same mission tomorrow. This is also the easiest grade mission to complete. Whereas rare missions are those mysterious clans, similar to the 4 great clans for great sects and such large clans. They are very mysterious as they secretly look for the mercenary association to apply for this mission. These missions, generally speaking, if one could encounter it once, it would only happen once. So the rewards for rare missions are absolutely generous. But as compared to experience training missions, the difficulty is much higher. Everyone's eyes shone as they heard that. It was rare to encounter a rare mission. The first mission they received was a rare mission. He did not know what level of rare mission this was. Qing Luo, how did you know that Iron Blood warriors had received a rare mission? Xiao Jin finally understood the reason why the vengeful Yi Qing Luo gave up on punishing Yu Qipeng because of a mission. Yi Qing Luo explained her guess towards Yu Qipeng in a concise and comprehensive manner and immediately explained, "Who said I'm going to let Yu Qipeng off?" Iron Blood warriors had just registered as a mercenary group today and had already lost all their face. They will definitely not be able to have a smooth journey in the near future. Furthermore, with Han Shang's words earlier, even if they are angry, they won't dare to make a move on us. Her eyes were curved as it flashed a crafty smile. This is even more torturous than killing them. Moreover, if we let him off, the world group's good name would at least be known in the mercenary world. How black-bellied. How treacherous. If we were to discuss who is the old fox in the world group, if Qing Luo is second, no one dares to claim to be first. Xiao Jin and Yen Shaoyi looked at each other and said in unison, "But we like it." Yi Qing Luo smiled as she picked up the scroll and opened it little by little. On the back of the scroll there were 4 words, High-Level Quest. Holy *T, it's actually a high-level rare mission. This luck. Xiao Jin stared at the 4 words, unable to sit still in his chair. Yi Qing Luo placed the scroll on the table. The details of the mission were clearly written on the top of the scroll. Head to the Death God Castle and obtain the exquisite pagoda. After the mission is completed, the reward will be 500 gold coins, a bottle of Scarlet Dragon Dew, a stalk of Profound Ice Immortal Root, a bundle of Infant Grass and 150 mercenary group honor points. 500 gold coins. This was indeed a huge sum of money. There was also the Red Dragon Dew, which was a high-quality external injury medicine. With just a drop, it could immediately heal any wound on the body without leaving a single scar. This was a medicine that many female profound practitioners coveted. Chapter 475. Profound Ice Immortal Root, Infant Grass. These 2 medicinal herbs were exactly what Yi Qing Luo needed. She was already following beside Ghost Doctor, and if there were no accidents, she should be able to advance to the stage of a Grandmaster Alchemist in no time. By then she would be able to refine the medicinal pill to restore Ziling's lame leg. These 2 medicinal herbs were one of the medicinal herbs needed to refine it. Just as Yi Qing Luo was thinking about these 2 medicinal herbs, everyone's vision and attention was concentrated on Death God Castle. Death God Castle. That was the grave of numerous cultivators. No, more accurately, it should be the grave of numerous thieves. Other than the guards there, no one could walk out of there alive. That place was named Death God Castle because there really was a death god inside. However, countless number of cultivators and bandits continued to swarm into Death God Castle. Because in Death God Castle, there were simply too many enviable and coveted treasures which they wanted to get their hands on. No one knew where this rumor came from. It was rumored that in ancient times the upper realm was at war. The realm of gods hid their treasures in Death God Castle. God realm? That was the rumored place. The strongest existence in the upper realm. The treasures which they left behind, if one was able to obtain one, they would definitely be able to dominate the Nirvana realm. But that exquisite pagoda wasn't the so-called treasure. Because Death God Castle was rumored to contain the God realm's treasures. Because of that, many families placed their treasures in Death God Castle for safekeeping. No one knew who the castle lord of Death God Castle was. But they knew that the things which were placed in Death God Castle would absolutely not be stolen. This exquisite pagoda was something which a certain family placed in Death God Castle to store. Its function was similar to Heavenly Academy's Heavenly Pagoda, which could store people into the pagoda. The only difference was that Heavenly Pagoda created numerous spaces in the pagoda to allow students to cultivate and grow, whereas Exquisite Pagoda was an attack type. Once one was sucked into the Exquisite Pagoda, there was basically no way to walk out alive. Because of that, no one knew what was the situation inside the pagoda. Which meant to say, this high-grade rare mission was an extremely dangerous mission. Number 1, Death God Castle. It was basically impossible to barge into it. Even if one were to enter, one would not be able to come out alive. Secondly, the Exquisite Pagoda was too dangerous. If one didn't know how to use it and was accidentally sucked into the Exquisite Pagoda, one's life would be over. Damn it. No wonder the mission rewards were so bountiful. If we complete this mission, the mercenary honor points will be enough for us to be promoted to a bronze mercenary group. It should be known that the mercenary union had great restrictions on the promotion of mercenary groups. This was because every increase in level meant that the overall strength of the mercenary group would increase by 100-fold. Just like the world group which Yi Qing Luo had established now, in order to be promoted from an ordinary mercenary group to a bronze plate, they would need to complete at least 100 low-grade and intermediate-grade missions to accumulate 100 credit points before they could be promoted. The reward for this mission was 150 honor points. Simply savage. The problem is, we can't complete it. The youths below all shook their heads in shock. They had all heard of the legends of Death God Castle. They had even heard that 10 years ago the Nirvana Realm's number 1 divine thief, after entering Death God Castle, there was no more news of him. Many of them were spreading rumors that this divine thief had died in Death God Castle. Even a professional thief like Divine Thief was unable to do it, so how could they possibly do it? Chapter 476. The mission to head to the Death God Castle. Even if it was a god-level mission, it would be considered normal. How could he have been assigned to a high-level mission? If a bronze or silver plate mercenary group were to accept such a mission, wouldn't that be sending them to their deaths? The mercenary guild would never make such a mistake. Moreover, what's even more strange is, why would Yu Qipeng accept this mission? Yi Qing Luo rubbed her chin as she slowly combed through her thoughts. The Iron Blood warriors are still conserving their energy and recruiting their troops. But today they hurriedly rushed over to register their mercenary group. Their motive is for this mission. Apparently they already knew what the mission is. Knowing that he has to go to the Death God Castle to steal the Exquisite Pagoda, but he still chose this mission. This also means that he is extremely confident in this mission. Yi Qing Luo narrowed her eyes as a glint flashed past her eyes. That is to say, there are other ways to complete this mission. Even a mercenary group like the Predators has the confidence to complete this mission. For us, we shouldn't be able to. You are not allowed to go. The 3 cold words seemed to be wrapped in frost, freezing Yi Qing Luo. This voice shocked Yi Qing Luo. She turned her head in shock and looked at the man beside her. When she met the man's cold, black eyes that were like molten obsidian, all her words were stuck in her throat. He was angry. Yi Qing Luo had never seen Dmo Xian so angry before. Just a pair of eyes was enough to make a person not even dare to make a sound. Xian. After a long while, Yi Qing Luo braced herself and moved her little hand over bit by bit, grabbing onto Dmo Xian's wrist. She knew what Dmo Xian was angry about. Death God Castle was too dangerous. It was so dangerous that one could easily lose their life if they were not careful. The world group's people were not strong to the point where they could come and go as they pleased in Death God Castle. Dmo Xian was worried about her, worried that she would be too stubborn and insist on completing this task. But she was not willing to give up on this rare mission. For Yu Qipeng to so confidently accept this task, there must be a way to complete it. What Yu Qipeng could do, she could definitely do it too. There was no time limit for this mission. It was not impossible for her to spend some time and ask around. Xian, there's no room for discussion. Dmo Xian's voice was cold as he suddenly stood up. Lil Luo, don't force me to bring you to the Imperial Palace. As soon as he finished speaking, he immediately strode out and left the guest room. When Yi Qing Luo chased after him, there were many people outside, but Dmo Xian was nowhere to be seen. If he didn't want her to find him, she couldn't find him no matter what. Chapter 477. Although along the way they did not see Dmo Xian make a move, but Yan Xiaoyi and the others absolutely believed that if they really met an opponent whom Yi Qing Luo was unable to contend against, Dmo Xian would definitely be the first to block in front of Yi Qing Luo to protect her. If the place Yi Qing Luo wanted to go to had exceeded the protection range which he could predict, DMO Xian would never allow her to go, even if DMO Xian could guarantee Yi Qing Luo's safety. But as long as one of the other brothers was injured, Yi Qing Luo would definitely not wash her hands of this. I know. Yi Qing Luo pursed her pink lips and lowered her eyelids slightly. I know he's worried about me. You know he's worried about you. He's not angry at you for no reason. Why are you still pulling a long face? Xiao Jin suddenly squeezed the hand on her shoulder. Don't pull a long face. The arch can't bear to be angry with you. Jin Zi, are you looking for a fight? Yi Qing Luo was in so much pain that she drew in a breath of cold air, as she unhappily swatted away Xiao Jin's hand and retreated a few steps, massaging her shoulder. I'm advising you. Yi Qing Luo's hand which was massaging her shoulder gradually stopped. She bit her lower lip and said, I know he's worried about me, but are you guys willing to give up on the mission that's already in your hands? Even a team of Wuxia's level has confidence. I feel that, if we properly investigate, there might be a way to complete the mission without harming our lives. Yi Qing Luo's voice had just stopped. Suddenly, he heard a clear and sweet voice that carried a hint of coquettishness, but it was completely emotionless. Qing Luo. It was Mo Yuing who had not spoken a single word ever since they left the devil class. She was dressed in a black outfit that wrapped around her petite body. There was actually a hint of mischievousness and cuteness in her. 2 small black lumps hung down from the 2 sides of his shoulders. Following Mo Yuying's footsteps, he could hear the jingle of the bell on her wrist. If it were you, you would also stop the arch. She looked up, her voice flat and emotionless. Yi Qing Luo's heart trembled as her pupils suddenly widened. That was right. Think about it from another perspective. If DMO Xian were to take part in a mission with unknown dangers and a high mortality rate, she would never allow DMO Xian to participate. Against the fear of the unknown, if he was alone, he could still give it a try. Now they had each other, someone they cared about. No matter what, he could not bear to use his life as a wager. Don't we have 3 days off? Since we've registered our mercenary group today, let's book a restaurant to celebrate tonight. We can also take this opportunity to think about whether or not we should continue with this mission. Xiao Jin saw Yi Qing Luo's expression and gradually resumed his smile. He immediately spoke up to ease the current atmosphere. Yan Shaoyi nodded and said, 3 days of vacation, no rush, no rush. Today the 2 of you should calm each other down. Tomorrow you will also calm down. If you still insist on doing this mission tomorrow, we'll think of a way to convince the arch. Convince? Once DMO Xian had decided on something, even she would not be able to convince him. If DMO Xian wasn't willing, she absolutely could not take a single step into Death God Castle. Just like what Mo Yuing said, DMO Xian did not allow her to go to Death God Castle. Just like how she did not allow DMO Xian to go to dangerous places, it was the same logic. Putting herself in his shoes, she could understand DMO Xian's feelings. Chapter 478. This mission was delayed because of this. Yi Qing Luo went to look for Yu Qipeng to probe for news while the world group's other youngsters packed up their things and returned to Yan Xiaoyi's mansion. Mo Han Shang naturally followed along to the mansion. With the addition of a new member, Xiao Jin lent a set of clothes to Mo Xian and the team's clothes were reduced by a few sets. After he took Mo Han Shang's measurements, he went out to find someone to make a few sets of the world group's uniform. The Iron Blood Warrior mercenary group was gloomy. Yu Qipeng's face was filled with hostility. As he walked, he gritted his teeth. Duke Jing followed by his side and his hand was already bandaged properly as it hung in front of his chest. Yu Qipeng, don't worry. This Duke will definitely let Uncle Monarch take revenge for this Duke. Duke Jing lowered his head as he took a look at his wrist. The pain of being broken still lingered in his bones. Just thinking about it made him feel a dull pain in his hand. When I get back, I'll tell Uncle Monarch about what happened today. It's just a mercenary union. As long as I give the order, Uncle Monarch will definitely send troops to destroy the mercenary union. Duke Jing raised his head proudly as he had already imagined the scene of him saying these words in his mind. The more he thought about it, the more he wanted to act on it. Idiot! A low reprimanding voice could be heard through gritted teeth. Duke Jing's brows creased as he stared towards the direction of the voice. Yu Qipeng, what did you say? Yu Qipeng's heart was filled with frustration. For the sake of the predators, he had spent so much time and poured in all his efforts. He wanted to soar into the sky after registering as a mercenary group. But He didn't expect that a group of young girls who were still wet behind the ears would disrupt all his plans. Not only did the predators not soar to the top, but they also became a joke in the eyes of all the mercenary groups, losing all face. He was the young master of the Yuchi family, the leader of the Iron Blood Warriors, but he had to apologize to a little girl, bowing down to a young boy. All these were all thanks to that young lass, that Emohan Shang. Filled with anger and unwillingness, Duke Jing, this brainless fool, was still chattering away beside his ears. Yuchi Peng felt increasingly irritated. I say, you're The moment he said that, Yuchi Peng suddenly came back to his senses. His eyes were gloomy and cold as he stared coldly at Duke Jing for some time, and the vicious aura around him gradually dissipated a little. There's something that Duke Jing doesn't know about. When Yuchi Peng opened his mouth once again, his voice had already reverted back to his usual gentleness and calmness. The Mercenary Association is spread across the 4 continents of Nirvana Realm, and every main city has a Mercenary Association branch. Does Duke Jing know what this means? Duke Jing's face sunk as he was still bearing a grudge against Yuchi Peng for scolding him earlier. He snorted coldly and turned his face away, looking very much like a child throwing a tantrum. Yuchi Peng restrained the impatience and disgust in his eyes and continued to explain. This means that the influence of the Mercenary Association in the Nirvana Realm is absolutely not inferior to the 4 great Profounder clans. It's not just the 4 great Profounder clans that have to be amiable before the Mercenary Association. Even the monarchs of the 4 continents have to give the Mercenary Association some face. In other words, even the 4 great profound practitioner clans and the monarch had to give face to the Mercenary Association. Even if he asked the monarch to send troops to the Mercenary Association, the monarch would absolutely not agree. Chapter 479. For a gentleman to take revenge, 10 years is not too late. Yuchi Peng spat out these few words from the slits of his teeth as his eyes were masked with a layer of viciousness. He clenched his fists tightly. For the Iron Blood Warriors, we must endure this grievance. Mentioning the Iron Blood Warriors, Duke Jing's expression eased up slightly. If we want to develop the Iron Blood Warriors, we must rely on the Mercenary Association's power. Duke Jing, it's alright to suffer a little grievance now. One day, we will get back at them. Saying that, Yuchi Peng seemed to have thought of something as a sneer of ridicule flashed past his eyes. They won't be complacent for long. They thought that by snatching that high-grade rare mission from my hands, they would be able to complete that mission. Had that mission, other than me, no one else is able to complete it. Yuchi Peng's few words had already coaxed Duke Jing into submission. Now that he heard about the mission, Duke Jing's heart was filled with doubts. What mission is that? It's because of this mission that you're in such a hurry to bring everyone here to register the mercenary group. If it wasn't for the fact that Yuchi Peng was in a hurry to register the mercenary group, they would have spent some time in the marketplace to subdue Yiqing Luo and the other young ladies. Those young ladies wouldn't have appeared in the mercenary group. Iron Blood Warriors wouldn't have to face today's predicament. Yuchi Peng gave a cold laugh. High-grade rare mission. As long as we complete that mission, our ordinary mercenary group will be able to upgrade to a bronze plate mercenary group. No matter how ignorant Duke Jing was, he had understood everything about the mercenary group. Naturally, he understood how difficult it was for a mercenary group to upgrade. One mission and they would be able to upgrade to bronze plate immediately. No wonder Yuchi Peng was so concerned. If that mission was snatched away by the world group, wouldn't they be able to upgrade faster than us? Want to complete that mission? Just based on them? Yuchi Peng's lips twitched in disdain. Following that, his gaze looked towards Duke Jing. If they don't accept the mission within 3 days, that mission will eventually return to our hands. These few days, just pay close attention to the Mercenary Association's mission acceptance wall. This high-grade rare mission, we are determined to get it. Knowing that this mission would be able to upgrade to a bronze plate mercenary group, Duke Jing was also attentive. The moment a new official took up his post, he received his first mission. Duke Jing immediately stopped his chest and raised up that uninjured hand as he replied seriously, "All right, this Duke will definitely not take my eyes off this mission." There was also a rule for the Mercenary Union to accept missions. After accepting a mission, if the mercenary group did not confirm to accept the mission, it would be considered as giving up on the mission after 3 days. That mission scroll would also become an ordinary scroll. He would no longer receive any rewards from the Mercenary Union. This mission would then be returned to the Mercenary Union's mission receiving wall and accepted by other mercenary groups. Yu Qipeng looked at the delighted Duke Jing and a trace of cold smile flashed past his eyes. He wiped away the disdain towards Duke Jing in his eyes and retracted his vision. The two of them did not notice that a slender figure was standing on a treetop in the darkness. Yiqing Luo narrowed her eyes as her lips curled into a smile which didn't look like a smile. Sure enough, her guess was right. The reason why Yu Qipeng registered his mercenary group today was because of this high-level rare mission. He was very confident about this mission. This kind of confidence, where did it come from? Could it be that Yu Qipeng was really able to come and go as he pleased in Death God Castle unscathed and even take away the exquisite pagoda? Chapter 480. It was absolutely impossible for Yu Qipeng to have any relations with the guards in Death God Castle. He could coerce and bribe the Mercenary Association's guards to intercept Yiqing Luo. But it was absolutely impossible to use the same method to make Death God Castle's guards open a backdoor for him. Then there was one last possibility. Exquisite pagoda wasn't in Death God Castle. Or perhaps, it was in Yu Qipeng's hands. If that was the case, then things would be easy. Looked like to complete this mission they had to start from Yu Qipeng. After Yu Qipeng and the rest returned to Three Springs City, they went their separate ways. Duke Jing had suffered a huge humiliation today and couldn't wait to complain to Uncle Monarch. As for the other mercenary soldiers, their morale had been greatly stimulated and all of them revealed an exhausted look as they were sent back to the Iron Blood Warriors' main camp to rest. Yu Qipeng headed straight for the Yuqi residence. His expression was gloomy as his entire body emitted a terrifying vicious qi. The attendants and maids who went up to welcome him immediately avoided him when they saw him from afar, not even daring to greet him. Yu Qipeng's courtyard was located at the south side of the Yuqi residence and it was the biggest courtyard in the residence. Yiqing Luo stopped outside the courtyard. Her vision was fixed on this courtyard as her slender brows creased tightly into a bundle. Again. That. When she first met Yu Qipeng, that disgusting feeling came again. There seemed to be something in this courtyard. There was something which made her extremely uncomfortable. Lass. In her mind, Old Man Song's voice suddenly rang. I had always felt that this Yu Qipeng was extremely strange. Now that I see this courtyard, I discover that this courtyard is even stranger. Yiqing Luo raised her hand and pressed it against her chest, suppressing this uncomfortable feeling. It was indeed very strange. So strange that all the pores on her body opened up. Lass, don't go in. Old Man Song's voice was solemn. This feeling is too strange. I'm unable to sense the exact source of this feeling. Strange, simply too strange. It's too late. Indeed it was too late. While Yiqing Luo was conversing with Old Man Song, her vision had been paying attention to Yu Qipeng. After Yu Qipeng entered the courtyard, the vicious qi which he emitted became even thicker. Then, as if he had lost all his strength, he staggered and half fell to the ground. His hands were on the ground and his head was lowered, buried in his hair. After that, there was no more movement. Then at the same time Old Man Song told her not to go in. Yu Qipeng, who had not moved for a long time, suddenly turned his head. Under the strands of hair on his face, a pair of penetrating eyes, like an icy cold venomous snake, tightly coiled around Yiqing Luo. Yu Qipeng still did not move. But Yiqing Luo knew. He saw her. Those eyes were eerily cold. Yiqing Luo's heart was filled with fear. Those eyes, that gaze was definitely not Yu Qipeng. That was not a gaze that Yu Qipeng could have. This knowledge made Yiqing Luo's entire body turn cold. For the first time in her life, Yiqing Luo had this kind of fearful mentality. That kind of gaze was too terrifying. Oh no, little girl. Old Man Song's voice suddenly became louder, his tone was filled with panic. He is not Yu Qipeng. This old man finally knows why this courtyard is so strange. Yiqing Luo gave a bitter laugh. She had guessed that this person was not Yu Qipeng. To put it more accurately, after entering this courtyard, this body was no longer Yu Qipeng's soul. But even if she knew this horrifying truth, Yiqing Luo had no way to leave. She believed. Chapter 481. Just what kind of secret was hidden in this courtyard? Just what kind of power was attached to Yu Qipeng's body? It was a feeling that made people feel disgusted with just a glance. He had a pair of eyes that made one's scalp go numb and body go cold. The soul in Yu Qipeng's body, that power was definitely not simple. Old Man Song, if I were to display teleportation, would I be able to leave the Yuqi residence? Yiqing Luo congealed her senses as she asked in her heart. No. Old Man Tsang interrupted her without hesitation. You can't use your secret technique. If you're discovered by the dark forces, they'll definitely discover that the Azure Dew bracelet is in your hands. Dark forces? Yiqing Luo's expression changed. What you mean is, that energy in this courtyard is from the dark forces? Yes, the strange aura in this courtyard comes from the dark forces. It's exactly the same as the mysterious yin qi on your fourth sister. Old Man Tsang's tone was extremely solemn. Girl, if the dark forces are involved, you'll be in trouble. Yiqing Luo had experienced the power of the dark forces from Yiqing Ling. Yiqing Ling had only taken a handful of items from the dark forces, and she who had her profound jade heart destroyed was able to display the strength of a cultivator. As for Yiqing Qian, she could also make use of the dark forces' power to successfully break through to the earth profound grade. This was enough to show how powerful and mysterious this power was. Yiqing Luo had never dared to underestimate the dark forces. But what made Yiqing Luo puzzled was, the dark forces were a dark existence in the Nirvana realm. In the eyes of many, this was an evil place. They were the aliens that had been banished from the Nirvana realm. Why did so many people choose to cooperate with the dark forces? It was understandable that Yiqing Ling and Yiqing Qian would seek help from the dark forces. But why would Yu Qipeng be involved with the dark forces? Recently, the actions of the dark forces have become more and more rampant. Old Man Tsang sighed worriedly. Logically speaking, the people of the Nirvana realm looked down on those who hid in the dark. If they really met, they would only forcefully expel the dark ones from the Nirvana realm. But, more and more profound practitioners chose to accept the power of darkness. The dark forces were getting restless recently. After all, they were carrying out some kind of plan. The world might not be peaceful anymore. Going against him head-on, I have no chance of winning. Yiqing Luo narrowed her eyes. She stared at Yu Qipeng, who was still lying on the ground, not moving at all. He was still using that pair of sharp eyes to stare intently at her. The current Yu Qipeng was too strange. Since she couldn't use her secret technique, she couldn't escape even if she wanted to. What should she do in this situation? Old Man Tsang naturally understood Yiqing Luo's current physique and profound grade the best. Yiqing Luo indeed didn't have the ability to go head-to-head with Yu Qipeng. Lass, is there any way to contact Dmo Xian? If Dmo Xian was here, just a Yu Qipeng, even if it was Yu Qipeng who had attached himself to the dark forces, it wouldn't be a problem at all. Yiqing Luo was stunned as she slowly shook her head. It had always been Dmo Xian looking for her. She had never specially looked for Dmo Xian, let alone contacting him. Old Man Tsang remained silent for a moment. Yiqing Luo only felt a scorching heat on her wrist, as though it was burning her wrist. She immediately raised her hand, and on her left wrist, a circle of cherry blossom runes appeared indistinctly. The red flowing light kept flashing. What was moving was tiny wisps of flames jumping in joy. Chapter 482. Yu Qipeng moved. When Yiqing Luo raised her wrist, Yu Qipeng moved. Perhaps it was because of the red stream of light on Yiqing Luo's wrist which gave Yu Qipeng a sense of threat. Yu Qipeng's palms slapped out a swift and fierce palm wind. The surrounding sand and dust were all lifted up by this airflow. His aura was like 10,000 layers of wind and waves that could devour mountains and rivers. Yiqing Luo reacted in time, and with a leap, her figure was like lightning as she avoided that palm wind. He leaped into the air, and with a few teleportation steps, he retreated a long distance. Not knowing if it was a misperception, the killing intent in Yu Qipeng's eyes seemed to have become even more intense. Not waiting for Yiqing Luo's reaction, Yu Qipeng's arm slid like a snake as a whirlwind rose beneath his feet. His loose robe fluttered in the strong wind. Following that, an even more powerful palm wind swept over. Yiqing Luo's feather fan moved, intending to borrow the power of her profound qi dance to block the pressure from this palm wind. Suddenly she heard Old Man Tsang's stern shout, "Girl, let's go." The burning sensation on his wrist became more and more obvious. The circle of cherry blossoms was like a tattoo branded on her wrist. The fragmented enchanting red light formed a complicated totem. Old Man Tsang's voice paused. Yiqing Luo only felt an inexhaustible energy diffusing from the cherry blossoms. It was Old Man Tsang who was helping her. Yiqing Luo's fingers clenched into a fist as her feet stepped onto that set of footwork. In a split second, like a bolt of lightning, her figure had already arrived at the walls of the Yuchi Manor's entrance. She could not use the teleportation secret technique. But she could still use this set of footwork from her previous life. If she were to directly use her footwork, she might not be able to avoid Yu Qipeng's Qijin. Fortunately, Old Man Song had used the power of the Azure Dew bracelet to protect her. Before Yiqing Luo left the Yuqi residence, she turned her head towards that strange courtyard. At the open courtyard door, Yu Qipeng is standing there with a pair of sinister eyes filled with killing intent staring at her. Seeing her stop, Yu Qipeng's eyes flashed and he strode forward as if he wanted to catch up to her. Yiqing Luo's heart skipped a beat and with a leap she flipped down from the top of the wall. When he saw the courtyard from the corner of his eyes, Yu Qipeng stood at the entrance of the courtyard. His face was filled with rage and a vicious aura overflowed. However, his legs were pressed against the door of the courtyard, and he did not have the slightest intention to catch up. When Yiqing Luo returned to the mansion, her body was still cold and stiff. Qiao Jin and the others gathered around to ask about the results. Yiqing Luo shook her head. What I can confirm is, Yu Qipeng indeed has a way to complete the mission. I'm guessing that there's a possibility that the exquisite pagoda is with him. Impossible. Enai Ruopan tilted her head as she took out a small booklet from her bosom and flipped a few pages. I specially went to investigate on matters regarding Death God Castle. As long as an item is placed in the Death God Castle, unless the original owner of the item went to retrieve it, otherwise, the exquisite pagoda would definitely not be in the hands of enemies outside of the Death God Castle. Then what if the owner of the exquisite pagoda collaborated with Yu Qipeng? Yin Xiaoyi raised a hypothesis. That's even more impossible. The exquisite pagoda was a rare treasure that was recorded in the mysterious treasures record. Cooperating with Yu Qipeng is equivalent to giving the exquisite pagoda to the person who gave the mission. This kind of losing deal, who would be willing to do it? One must know that the world's rare treasures which were recorded in the mysterious treasures record were all things which were hard to find in the world. Who would be willing to hand it over to others? When Yiqing Luo heard that, her expression didn't loosen up at all. Chapter 483. Qiao Jin's expression congealed. You mean? Just a guess. After all, if we do this, it's too obvious and the Mercenary Association isn't a fool. Yiqing Luo nodded her head slightly, acknowledging Qiao Jin's guess. Alright, I'll go check on it later. If the one who issued the mission was related to the owner of the exquisite pagoda, then this was a huge conspiracy. Not only would it allow Yu Qipeng to gain, the exquisite pagoda would also return to the original owner's hands, and in the end, they would be able to seek compensation from Death God Castle for the theft. There was a possibility that the entire Mercenary Association would be implicated in this. From then on, the Mercenary Association would be suppressed. Yiqing Luo narrowed her eyes as her eyes contained a deep meaning. There was one more important point. If she hadn't guessed wrongly, that energy which occupied Yu Qipeng's body was still unable to leave Yu Qipeng's courtyard. Yu Qipeng only started to change after he entered the courtyard. After he discovered Yiqing Luo, he only stood on the same spot and struck out his palm wind attack. And after she speedily climbed over the wall and left, he had no intention to chase after her. Yu Qipeng had already made a soul exchange with the dark forces. After she discovered this secret, shouldn't he chase up to her and silence her? If it was Yu Qipeng, if it was the dark forces' energy, even if she had Old Man Song's help, it wasn't impossible for him to chase up to her. But Yu Qipeng didn't leave that courtyard. Your thinking is very correct. Old Man Song sighed softly as though he recalled something. The reason why the dark forces are called as the dark forces is because that bunch of people in the dark forces use the dark arts which are intolerable in this world. Like your eldest sister, fourth sister, Yu Qipeng and the others, if they wanted to cooperate with the dark forces, they would have to fork out an equivalent price to exchange for power. Yu Qipeng used his own soul to make the exchange. Yu Qipeng's courtyard should be the place where the dark forces' energy resides. Over there, the dark forces' energy can freely control Yu Qipeng's body. But if he leaves the courtyard, the dark forces will leave Yu Qipeng. Speaking of this, Old Man Song's voice turned gloomy as he revealed some worries. Do you still remember your fourth sister being controlled by that profound Yinqi long sword? Yiqing Luo naturally remembered. That was the first time she came into contact with the dark forces and the power of the dark forces. If Yu Qipeng uses this power that is used for trading and attaches it to something, he can also use the power of the dark forces outside of the courtyard. When Old Man Song's words fell, Yiqing Luo's heart thumped. This was the same as Yiqing Ling holding onto that long sword from the dark forces. Under the situation where her profound jade heart was destroyed, she could still exert her profound energy and launch an attack. However, such a method could easily cause the host's physical body to be completely devoured. This was probably the reason why Yuchi Peng could only allow the dark forces to attach themselves to him in his own courtyard. Yuchi Peng does not wish to bear the consequences of being devoured. Last, you have to be more careful during this period of time. There are suddenly so many people around you who have made deals with the dark forces. I'm afraid the dark forces will target you. I need to raise my profound rank to the Earth Profound Realm as soon as possible. Old Man Tsang lowered his voice, his tone revealing a bit of helplessness. Originally he thought that by Yiqing Luo's side he could slowly guide her bit by bit, consolidate his own foundation and cultivate profound qi. Chapter 484. Based on Yiqing Luo's current ability, she could only barely stand firm in this world. When Old Man Tsang thought of his own mission, he suddenly felt that he still had a long way to go. Qing Luo. Long Yunzhan, who was seated on the main seat, suddenly opened his mouth and called out Yiqing Luo's name. Yiqing Luo kept her thoughts as she congealed her gaze towards him. Are we going to give up on this mission? Long Yunzhan's voice was extremely light, and no one could tell what he was feeling. Yiqing Luo was slightly stunned as she narrowed her eyes. Should he give up? She did not know the answer to this question. Di Zun disagrees. Long Yunzhan's index finger lightly tapped on the table. The thumping sound was like a drum beating on everyone's heart. Ripples that resembled flowing water flickered in those azure blue eyes. Faintly, an electric current flashed through them. There's a very strange feeling coming from Yuchi Peng. As a human dragon, Long Yunzhan's perception was much sharper than that of humans. When he first saw Yuchi Peng, Long Yunzhan sensed that kind of dangerous aura from Yuchi Peng. He's too dangerous. If this mission involves others, our team won't be able to withstand the pressure. It's too dangerous. In other words, Long Yunzhan's opinion was to give up this mission. Long Yunzhan had already sensed it. Yuchi Peng's entire person was emitting that profound yin qi. It was no wonder that everyone felt disgusted when they saw him. Long Yunzhan could roughly guess that behind Yuchi Peng, there might be an unknown power. This power was mysterious and unfathomable. If the World Group's members were to forcefully charge in, not only would they not gain any benefits, they would also suffer heavy losses. Even if we give up on this mission, Yuchi Peng might not let the World Group off. This time round, the Iron Blood Warriors had embarrassed themselves in front of the Mercenary Guild, using the Iron Blood Warriors' face to exchange for the World Group's glory. The Iron Blood Warriors would never let the World Group off. Even if Mo Hanshang had said that, even if Mo Hanshang had joined the World Group. But that didn't mean that Yuchi Peng would let the World Group off. It was only a matter of time. Yuchi Peng was injured today. After returning to the courtyard, he would definitely borrow the power of the dark forces to raise his profound level. From eavesdropping on his conversation with Duke Jing, Yiqing Luo knew that Yuchi Peng was determined to get this high-grade rare mission. Yiqing Luo stood up as her vision swept across the hall. Looking down at the youths who were staring at them with serious expressions, he cleared his throat and calmly said, "Do you think we should give up on this mission?" The World Group did not belong to her alone. She didn't want to give up on this mission. But after witnessing Yuchi Peng making a deal with the dark forces, Yiqing Luo's first reaction was the World Group's brothers. She was no longer alone. Every single word and action was related to the World Group. If they were to fight with the dark forces, not only would she not be able to protect herself, but her brothers would also not be able to escape. She should discuss this mission with her brothers before making a decision. The youths pursed their lips and clenched their fists. Their hearts were also extremely complicated. There was no one who did not fear death and danger. Hearing Yiqing Luo, Long Yunzhan and the others' conversation, they were very clear on the danger of this mission. When they heard about Death God Castle, they already had the thought of retreating. Chapter 485. Yiqing Luo took in everyone's expressions. Her lips curled as her lips revealed a relieved smile. Let's make our decision tomorrow. Other than the danger of Death God Castle, this mission concerns another powerhouse and the danger has exceeded what we can handle. The youthful faces of the youths all revealed expressions of terror. Other than Death God Castle, there was another dangerous powerhouse? The usually confident Yiqing Luo said these words because in her heart, she already had the intention to give up. Although they hadn't interacted with Yiqing Luo for a long time, but these youngsters had some understanding towards Yiqing Luo's character. They were very clear that the reason why Yiqing Luo chose to give up was mainly because she was worried about them. After all, this high-grade rare mission not only involved Death God Castle. Leave all these troublesome matters till tomorrow. Today is the first day of our mercenary group registration and also the day that Han Shang joins the world group. Tonight we'll book the entire restaurant. Xiao Jin will be the host. Yan Xiaoyi stood up and her clear voice intentionally broke the heavy atmosphere in a light tone as she clapped her hands. Xiao Jin instantly stood up. Why am I the host? Clothing, food, lodging and transportation. This lady is in charge of clothing, lodging and transportation and you're freaking not happy to be in charge of food? Are you a man or not? Yan Xiaoyi disdainfully glanced sideways at Xiao Jin as she gave a cold harumph. Xiao Jin's lips twitched. Listening to these words, why did it seem like they had all become Yan Xiaoyi's sugar babies? And even doubted if he was a man? Xiao Jin's thin lips tugged as his body suddenly closed in on Yan Xiaoyi as a pair of evil eyes revolved around her. Following that, he suppressed his voice as he leaned close to her ear. Whether I'm a man or not, you can try. Simply shameless. Yan Xiaoyi's cheeks suddenly flushed with heat. That warm breath by her ear gently landed on her skin, bringing along a man's unique scent. Yan Xiaoyi's quick-witted beautiful eyes stared fiercely at Xiao Jin who suddenly closed in on her. Xiao Jin's face was instantly magnified and reflected in his eyes. Having been used to the elegant and refined Long Yunjian, and having seen Dimo Xian's heaven-shaking peerless elegance, Xiao Jin's looks, which could at most be considered as pleasing to the eye, seemed extremely ordinary. At least on normal days Yan Xiaoyi felt that way. But at this moment, this face, which could not be considered good-looking, had an indescribable unique charm that attracted her gaze. Yan Xiaoyi only felt that her cheeks were even hotter, her heart was actually beating wildly uncontrollably. This feeling, what was going on? She usually had more intimate contact with Xiao Jin, but she had never felt so flustered. Sister Yan and brother Xiao are going to kiss. A clear and sweet voice rang out. Kitty Li stood up with her hands clasped together, staring at Yan Xiaoyi and Xiao Jin with a face full of excitement. That pair of watery, pitch-black eyes shone with a luster of excitement. This voice caused the two people who were still staring at each other to come back to their senses. Suddenly, the two of them looked as if they had seen a ghost. Their eyes widened and they pushed each other away. *CK. Xiao Jin. Have you taken a fancy to this young lady's beauty? Go away, you're disgusting. Your mother. Yan Xiaoyi, I feel even more disgusted, alright? Seeing the two of them fighting again, Kitty Li blinked her long eyelashes in puzzlement as she tilted her head and pouted her lips in puzzlement. Weren't you going to kiss earlier? Why are you fighting again? Could it be that Kitty Li said something wrong? The youngsters roared with laughter. Chapter 486. In the evening, the group arrived majestically at Three Spring City's No. 1 Inn, Heavenly Fortune Inn. In the afternoon, Xiao Jin had already booked a table at the inn. When the group arrived, a waiter went up to welcome them and led them to the large private room on the second floor. On the left side of the second floor there were many private rooms, whereas on the right side there were 3 large private rooms. This kind of large private room was enough to accommodate 4 large tables and 100 over people. After entering the private room, it was the youngsters' first time coming to such a place and they started looking around as their eyes were filled with curiosity and joy. Very quickly, the waiter served the dishes which had been prepared earlier and several jars of wine were served. Today the brothers had temporarily thrown the matter of the mission to the back of their minds and everyone was happy, so they didn't stop drinking. Jars of wine were served one after another. After the meal, many of these youngsters who didn't know how to drink all sprawled on the table and fell asleep. There were quite a number of them who were in a drunken state as they kept shouting, "The world group." The last ones who were still sober were Long Yunjian and the others. Yiqing Luo wasn't in a good mood, so she didn't reject all the wine which the brothers offered her as her head felt a little heavy. She raised her finger and pressed on her forehead as she looked at Yi Fengyu, who was quietly sleeping beside her, as she shook her head helplessly. "I'll go get the waiter and get him to bring some money back to the mansion." Yiqing Luo's body swayed as she stood up unsteadily. Long Yunjian stared at her swaying figure as his brows creased tightly as he abruptly stood up. Long Yunjian was also persuaded to drink quite a lot of wine. He drank more than Yiqing Luo, but at this moment, he didn't look drunk at all. His footsteps were steady as he chased up to Yiqing Luo in a few steps as he held onto her arm. "Qing Luo, I'll go get him." His hand held onto Yiqing Luo's wrist. That indescribable feeling suddenly gushed up his mind. The side of his face actually felt slightly hot. The soft wrist in his palm felt completely different from the touch of Qiao Jin and the others. It made him develop a kind of impulse to hold on to this hand forever, not letting go. This thought made Long Yunjian's heart trembled fiercely as a sliver of panic flashed past his azure blue eyes. He pulled Yiqing Luo aside and opened the private room's door. A very familiar voice came from outside the door. "Have you heard? It's about the eldest miss of the Yi family." "I've heard of her. I didn't expect her to look so pure and kind on the outside to be so slutty on the inside. She even wanted to steal her own sister's fiancé. Just how much does she lack men? I've long heard that there's something going on between her and Duke Ping." Previously, didn't that slut Yiqing Luo create a ruckus at Three Spring Sect's entrance several times? The eldest miss of the Yi clan deliberately sought death to prove her innocence. The Three Spring Sect's fate has come to an end. Sooner or later they will be kicked out of the four great sections, two little bitches, one cheap and the other reckless. These people could not conceal their disgust and ridicule towards the two young ladies of the Yi clan. Yiqing Luo could tell that the little slut in their words was referring to her. This voice, it was Lu Xuelan. As well as those high profound class 2 students. "That's not what I'm talking about." Lu Xuelan lowered her voice and said mysteriously. The other ladies immediately echoed, "Then what's the matter? Could it be that she's done something slutty again and it's even more explosive than that illicit affair with Duke Ping in the garden in broad daylight?" Chapter 487. These ladies were all unmarried young ladies from influential families. But the words that were hanging on their lips were so vulgar that it was unbearable to the ears. Luckily there were no outsiders around. If the customers were to hear this, these ladies would probably be reprimanded by their family's elders. Lu Xuelan gave a mysterious laugh. Wasn't Yiqing Qian married to Duke Ping by the monarch? But based on her unrestrained nature, she has already hooked up with Second Prince. What? Second Prince? I heard that. Second Prince is preparing to request to the monarch to marry Yiqing Qian as his imperial concubine. Lu Xuelan's tone was filled with ridicule as she spat in disdain. A vixen is indeed a vixen, her ability to seduce men is not small at all. The few female students' expressions changed. Yan Zhenfei, who was standing beside Lu Xuelan, drew in a breath of cold air. "Vice President, I heard that Yiqing Qian's lower body was spoilt by Duke Ping. The female doctor said that she needs to recuperate for several months and cannot do that. Thing. Yiqing Qian can still hook up with Second Prince? Who knows?" Lu Xuelan gave a light harumph. A vixen has her own ways. As the few of them were talking, they walked to the room next to Yiqing Luo's as they pushed open the door. The group of them were just about to enter when they heard Yan Zhenfei shrieking, "Yiqing Luo? What are you doing here?" Yan Zhenfei's foot, which had stepped into the room, retracted as she pointed towards Yiqing Luo's direction with a shocked expression. When Lu Xuelan heard Yan Zhenfei's shriek, her vision immediately followed Yan Zhenfei's gaze. On seeing Yiqing Luo in the open door of the room next door, her pupils swiftly widened. Earlier, their words were all heard by Yiqing Luo? Lu Xuelan trio started to tremble uncontrollably. What happened on the second story of the library pavilion had already become a nightmare in their hearts. They hated Yiqing Luo, but they were also afraid of Ghost Doctor, who was backing her. Ghost Doctor's disciple. If they offended Yiqing Luo and she told Ghost Doctor, they would absolutely. Recalling the last time when Ghost Doctor asked the administrator to dig his eyes out, their bodies trembled even more. The group of high profound class 2 students following behind didn't understand what was going on. Why was it that their high and mighty vice president, upon seeing the trash from Devil class, was scared to such a state? "Didn't you just call me a slut quite happily?" Lu Xuelan and Yan Zhenfei's reactions were seen clearly by Long Yunjian, who was standing beside Yiqing Luo. These people. Why were they so afraid of Yiqing Luo? He squinted his azure blue eyes as he glanced sideways at Yiqing Luo, who wasn't drunk at all, as his eyes dimmed. He slowly loosened his grip on Yiqing Luo's hand, leaving that hand hanging by his side as his fingers clenched tightly. As though this was the only way he could hold Yiqing Luo's fragrance and touch in his palm. "Say it, why aren't you continuing?" Yiqing Luo squinted her eyes slightly. Her expression was indifferent, but the smile on her lips revealed some eerie coldness. Lu Xuelan's face was pale as she squeezed Yan Zhenfei's hand. They knew that Yiqing Luo had the Ghost Doctor behind her, but the other students in the high profound class didn't know about it. One of the female students furrowed her brows in displeasure. They were students from the high profound class. Why would they be afraid of a devil class student? Even if this Yiqing Luo was not bad looking and had some ability. But in Heavenly Academy did they lack talented people? So what if I said you're a slut? You still don't want to admit it? A few days ago in the academy, you fainted from the fright of the killers. I don't know who saved you perhaps. Before you were saved you were still. Chapter 488. The group of students behind roared with laughter. Now that you mention it, I'm curious too, student Yi, you fainted at the scene where the killers were pursuing you. You look so stunning, those killers. I'm afraid they couldn't bear to kill you just like that. Saying that, everyone's gaze towards Yiqing Luo was filled with an ambiguous look. Their commotion attracted the attention of the customers on the first floor. They all turned their gazes towards Yiqing Luo. Yiqing Luo, Three Springs Sect's trash young matriarch. There was no one in Three Springs City who didn't know her. Especially for someone who had been a trash for more than 10 years, suddenly able to cultivate and even managed to enter Heavenly Academy, setting the record for the shortest time in Heavenly Academy's entrance examinations. It even caused a stir in the entire Three Springs City. Moreover, Yiqing Luo's elder sister Yiqing Qian, her beauty had already spread far and wide. Now hearing these high profound class students talking about this hypothesis, and thinking of Yiqing Qian, who knows, the blood of the Yi family might have some unbearably lascivious genes in it. Don't say any more. Yan Zhenfei shuddered when she heard the students' voices around her. She looked at Yiqing Luo in terror and exchanged glances with Lu Shuilan before taking quick steps into the private room. If you don't want to eat, then wait outside. Those two female students echoed each other and successfully brainwashed the customers, believing that Yiqing Luo had been humiliated by those killers and were in a good mood. Suddenly hearing Lu Shuilan's sharp cry, they had a shock. Turning their heads to look at Lu Shuilan, they saw her pale face filled with shock towards Yiqing Luo. They frowned tightly. They simply couldn't understand why Lu Shuilan would be afraid of a devil-class trash. Towards Lu Shuilan, they usually fawned over her, but that was because Lu Shuilan was now the acting vice president. Because of Yiqing Qian, because of Lu Shuiyu, their high profound class had fallen into Yiqing Luo's hands. They had become the academy's joke. Now that they had walked out of the academy in front of those people outside the academy, these two female students couldn't take it lying down. They were high profound class students, they had excellent aptitudes and were high up in the ranks. Why should they be suppressed by a notorious trash? Why should they become a joke in Heavenly Academy, and when they walked out of the academy, they still had to become a joke? Vice President, why are you afraid of a piece of trash? We are speaking the truth. Two female students walked in front of Yiqing Luo and raised their hands towards her face. Slut. Slutty Yiqing Qian's sister is also a slut in her bones. Yiqing Luo's slender brows creased tightly as she endured the heavy feeling coming from her head. Her cold and charming eyes turned cold as she speedily moved sideways. She reached out and grabbed the wrist of the girl who was about to slap her. With a violent tug, the female student staggered towards Yiqing Luo. Pa! A crisp sound rang out on the woman's face. In Yiqing Luo's hand, a red feather fan appeared out of nowhere. She slapped the female student's face with her fan, leaving a deep mark on her face. Yiqing Luo's slap was merciless. He condensed his Shen Qi and beat the female student until she spat out blood and a few of her teeth fell out. Yiqing Luo raised her hand and as though she was throwing rubbish, she threw this female student out. Motherf asterisk her, I'm in a bad mood. This bunch of clowns insisted on coming up to be her venting bucket, so she wouldn't stand on ceremony. Trash, high profound class students, no matter how much they think highly of themselves, they can't change the nature of trash. Chapter 489. You. The other female student's face revealed an infuriated expression. The female student had not expected Yiqing Luo to make a move just like that. Usually after staying in Heavenly Academy for a long time, these students had already formed a habit, not daring to make a move rashly. Yiqing Luo had long memorized the Academy's rules in her mind. In the Academy, they indeed said that they were not allowed to fight privately. But once they left the Academy could not control them. Even if Yiqing Luo released her profound qi and killed this female student directly, Heavenly Academy had no right to interfere. At most, it would be this female student's family who came to find trouble with her. This mouth, if it only has the ability to spread rumors, then this young matriarch feels that there's no use in keeping it. Yiqing Luo's eyes blinked as she gave a dainty smile. She waved the feather fan in her hand as she walked slowly and stopped in front of that female student. That slightly waving feather fan suddenly opened up. A sharp blade slid down from the fan's handle. Yiqing Luo's fingertip moved and that blade stuck onto the female student's mouth. She was smiling sweetly and innocently. But her eyes were icy cold as though it was covered with frost. The female student's body stiffened, not even daring to move her eyes. After meeting Yiqing Luo's charming eyes, her entire body turned stiff and the expression on her face revealed a terrified expression. Yiqing Luo had addressed herself as this young matriarch, which meant that her beating them up now had nothing to do with the academy. She was using the identity of Three Springs Sect's young matriarch to give this slap and to destroy their mouse. After hearing what Yiqing Luo said, Lu Shuilan and the other two who were sitting in the next room subconsciously recalled. That day on the second story of the library pavilion, Ghost Doctor also used this kind of casual tone to ask the administrator to dig out his eyes. In their hearts they were overwhelmed with shock. These were all high profound class 2 students. If these two female students offended Yiqing Luo, there was a possibility that the entire high profound class 2 would suffer a calamity. Ghost Doctor's character didn't care if they were the academy's elites or not. To stand up for his own disciple or whatever, it was just a matter of mood. You want to? The female student felt the coldness by the side of her mouth. She didn't dare to move. She blurted out 2 words. With a slight twitch of her facial muscles, the female student felt a stinging pain on her cheek, as if some kind of liquid was seeping out. She was so shocked that she didn't dare to speak again. This Yiqing Luo was simply a lunatic. Yiqing Luo would really kill her. How did we spread rumors? The female student who was thrown out stood up, clutching her chest. A few of her teeth had been broken, so when she spoke, her words were extremely strange. Her voice was leaking air and her pronunciation was unclear. However, he could still hear the rage in his voice clearly. You're the same as your slutty elder sister. The female student raised one hand and pointed at the youngsters who were lying unsteadily in the private room, and then pointed at Long Yunzhan who was beside Yiqing Luo. Aren't you on intimate terms with the overlord? Why is she with another man now? Does Di Zun know that we're having a secret meeting and drinking here? She suddenly laughed as her face was filled with ridicule. I don't think you and Di Zun have any relationship at all. You only know how to use this face of yours to go around seducing men? Before she could finish her words, Yiqing Luo didn't move. Instead it was Long Yunzhan who was beside her, who had moved to the front of the female student in a blink of an eye. His long arms stretched out as his 5 fingers strangled the female student's neck. That pair of azure blue eyes was as resplendent as a lantern, sparkling with excitement. Under that radiance, a thick murderous intent shot out. Your mouths indeed can't be taken. Chapter 490. The last word after was clearly said. A miserable shriek was heard from the female student's mouth. The entire heavenly fortune inn was especially silent. That miserable shriek, accompanied by the sound of bones breaking, was extremely clear. The crowd looked at Long Yunzhan in disbelief. Some of the timid customers who couldn't stand the sight of blood directly bowed their heads and retched. There were quite a number of spectators who subconsciously rubbed their lower jaws. What did they see? Long Yunzhan's large palm rose from the female student's neck and wrapped around her lower jaw. Without any hesitation, his 5 fingers suddenly clenched tightly. That female student's lower jaw bone was shattered and all her teeth were broken. Blood flowed down her mouth. That miserable shriek was her last sound. Long Yunzhan saw the blood stains on his palm and his elegant brows creased slightly as he wiped his hand on the female student's body. Following that, just like what Yiqing Luo did earlier, he casually threw her out. The crowd drew in a breath of cold air. Who on earth was this young man? His actions were so decisive. The female student who was under Yiqing Luo's feather fan instantly felt her legs go soft and could no longer stand properly. That miserable shriek was too horrifying. The one whose lower jaw bone was crushed was herself. The female student didn't even dare to think about it. Her entire body collapsed onto the ground. That sharp blade drew an extremely shallow scar on her face. The female student didn't have any reaction, as her eyes stared blankly in front, as she panted heavily. What's the matter, is a fight about to start? Qiao Jin's loud voice was heard from the room. Not long later he and Yen Shaoyi walked out. The crowd's vision shifted onto the both of them. Your clothing, why? Among the high profound Class 2 students, someone noticed their clothing. Following the open door, they looked inside. The entire room was filled with dozens of young men and women, all dressed in the same uniform. Apparently this was a team. Shengguan Fangyi stood in the crowd as his pupils suddenly opened wide. These are devil classes. Students? Ever since Yi Qing Luo and Shengguan Liuli had a conflict, Shengguan Fangyi specially investigated everything about Yi Qing Luo. According to the investigation, Yi Qing Luo had been a cripple for more than 10 years. Other than a lame maidservant, she had no one close to her and no friends at all. And after she got to know Dmo Xian and started cultivating, she did not get close to anyone or talk to anyone. But now, there were more than 60 people sitting in the room. To be able to drink and chat merrily, it was definitely not an ordinary friendship. The only explanation was, these people were the devil class's students, and after Yi Qing Luo joined the devil class, she made friends with them. As soon as he said this, no one in the surroundings believed him. Although the group of people in front of him were drunk and in a mess, he could more or less see the restless profound energy flowing around their bodies. These people were definitely not weak. How could they be a bunch of trash from the devil class? Yi Qing Luo sneered as she lowered her eyes and swept a glance at the terrified female students who were kneeling by her feet. She then raised her eyes and looked at those people from high profound class 2. Since you're here at the inn to eat, then eat properly. If the food can't stop your mouths, I don't mind helping you to do it. Finishing her words, she lifted her leg and kicked the female student towards the direction of high profound class 2 like she was kicking a ball. The female student was caught by a group of students. At this moment, no one dared to open their mouths to say a single word. Lu Shuelan and Yan Zhenfei hid in the private room, not daring to come out. Chapter 491. Pure-colored nine-tailed fox? When the customers heard this exclamation, they all stuck their heads out to take a look outside the inn. At the entrance of the Heavenly Fortune Inn stood a snow-white white fox with its head raised proudly. That white fox's size was almost the height of the inn, and its 9 white tails kept swaying. The white fur swayed along with the wind like a white wave. Under the heavens there was only one pure white nine-tailed fox. The Overlord's sacred beast, Little Nine. Which meant the Overlord had appeared? Everyone started to stand up as they rushed to the entrance. Little Nine's appearance caused the entire Three Springs city to go into an uproar. Everyone surrounded Little Nine, looking up at the imposing and majestic nine-tailed fox, their hearts filled with reverence and respect. Little Nine represented not only the one and only sacred beast in the world. It also represented the Overlord. Yi Qing Luo, who was standing on the second floor, also saw Little Nine standing at the entrance. Those youngsters who were still conscious behind her all stuck their heads out to take a look. This was the first time they had seen the sacred beast nine-tailed fox. That elegant figure, that arrogant temperament, it was indeed the Overlord's sacred beast. These youngsters all started to shout out as their faces, which were flushed red from the alcohol, were filled with adoration towards Dmo Xian, yearning towards the nine-tailed fox. Long Yunzhan's face was calm as he was expressionless. A pair of azure blue eyes stared intently at Yi Qing Luo's side, looking at the nine-tailed fox below. One could tell that when Yi Qing Luo saw Little Nine, her pair of frosty eyes started to circulate with a gentle glow. That devastatingly beautiful yet flamboyant, enchanting face, the contours were filled with gentleness. As though through Little Nine she saw another person. Another man who occupied her body and mind. By his ears, the youngster's fervent cheers and reverence towards Dmo Xian made Long Yunzhan feel even more frustrated. All his changes were seen clearly by Qiao Jin, who was by his side. Qiao Jin saw the usually expressionless Long Yunzhan, who would not reveal any emotions on his face, was actually filled with rage. Qiao Jin's heart jumped. He knew that Long Yunzhan had feelings for Yi Qing Luo. But he had not expected that after he found out that Yi Qing Luo was already together with Dmo Xian, before he could dispel this thought, extinguish this thought. If this feeling caused a rift between the two of them, this was not good. Standing on the standpoint of brothers, Qiao Jin naturally hoped that Yi Qing Luo would choose Long Yunzhan. However, as a bystander he could see everything clearly. It wasn't just him. All the brothers in the world group could tell. Yi Qing Luo's unique feelings towards Dmo Xian was something that none of them could compare to. Long Yunzhan had no way to come between Yi Qing Luo and Dmo Xian. Qiao Jin's expression was solemn. He was about to walk over and stand between them. But she saw Long Yunjian's elegant brows creased slightly as he abruptly grabbed Yiqing Luo's wrist once again as he leaned close to her ear and whispered, "What's a nine-tailed fox? Riding a blue dragon is even cooler than a nine-tailed fox." Yiqing Luo was stunned as her vision slowly met Long Yunjian's face with a question mark. Ha! Xiao Jin. The moment he said this, Long Yunjian realized what he had said. He was dumbfounded. How could he say such a thing? He was actually jealous of a nine-tailed fox. Long Yunjian's hand shook as he let go of Yiqing Luo's wrist. Xiao Jin leaned forward in time as his elbow knocked backwards, pushing Long Yunjian away by an inch. Chapter 492. Yiqing Luo replied with an "oh," as she didn't doubt Xiao Jin's explanation. At this moment, Yiqing Luo didn't have any other thoughts to guess the meaning behind Long Yunjian's words. Her vision was congealed on Little Nine. Little Nine was here, then where was Diamo Xian? Was he still angry? Yiqing Luo actually felt a little anxious. She pursed her pink lips and was about to jump down from the second floor's railing. But she saw a black-robed young man walking out from the surrounding crowd as he stopped beside the nine-tailed fox. He raised his head and stared at the nine-tailed fox. "Little Nine, I'll go up to invite her." Woo! Little Nine's sharp mouth moved as it gave off a soft moan. The young man stepped into Heavenly Fortune Inn, and when he raised his head, he saw the young lady standing on the second floor's railing. His brows creased as his face revealed disdain. But he still bore with this unhappiness as he leapt into the air and landed not too far away from Yiqing Luo. The sudden appearance of the young man attracted the attention of Xiao Jin and the others. Almost in an instant, Xiao Jin and the others blocked in front of Yiqing Luo. High profound classes students' expressions had a huge change as all of them retreated a few steps, attempting to hide behind their classmates. This young man was too strange. They couldn't tell his profound grade from him. But from him, there was a kind of imposing manner which made one involuntarily submit to him. This imposing manner made the world group's youngsters crease their brows in puzzlement. Why did it feel so familiar? This young man was able to stand beside the nine-tailed fox and even converse with her. No matter how they looked, he wasn't simple. Wind. Suddenly, a clear female voice was heard from Xiao Jin's back. Yiqing Luo pushed aside the few people who were blocking in front of her as she squinted her eyes and fixed her gaze on that young man for a long time. This face wasn't what she remembered Wind to look like. But this imposing manner and this figure, it should be Wind. Wind? Xiao Jin was astonished. This young man Yiqing Luo knew him? He's Ah Xian's guardian. Yiqing Luo explained as she looked towards Wind. You and Little Nine. Overlord asked me to fetch Miss Yi for a gathering. Wind directly interrupted Yiqing Luo's words. Gathering? Yiqing Luo's slender brows creased slightly. If Diamo Xian wanted to see her, he would always appear beside her directly. Since when did he need to send Little Nine and Wind over to create such a huge scene? Wait a minute. A battle formation? Yiqing Luo's breathing suddenly stopped as her heartbeat sped up. Diamo Xian wouldn't be doing it on purpose, right? Purposely creating such a big scene, sending out protectors and little Jiao, under the watchful eyes of everyone, he invited her to a gathering. This was a declaration to the entire Three Springs city. She, Yiqing Luo, had a close relationship with the Overlord. Her thigh was the Overlord. Could it be, Diamo Xian had always been by her side and had seen the conflict between her and the high profound class students? In his way, David protected her. Yiqing Luo's charming eyes were filled with a faint smile as she looked towards Xiao Jin and the others. I'll head over first. Xiao Jin and the others waved their hands. Yiqing Luo leaped down from the second floor and landed beside the nine-tailed fox. That soft white tail curled up Yiqing Luo and placed her firmly on its back. The surrounding people started to draw in breaths as well as those pairs of envious gazes. The one and only sacred beast nine-tailed fox had become this woman's mount. Those students from the high profound class were even more dumbfounded. Especially those two female students who provoked Yiqing Luo, their faces were ashen. Earlier they were still saying that Yiqing Luo and Diamo Xian had no relationship at all. Now, Diamo Xian had sent his own war pet and guardian over to personally invite Yiqing Luo. That incomparably valuable war pet, even voluntarily became Yiqing Luo's mount. Chapter 493. Wind, aren't you leaving together? Yiqing Luo looked at Wind, who was still standing on the second floor, as she asked. Wind's expression seemed to have turned gloomy as he snorted. Other than the Overlord, no one else can sit on Little Nine's back. Yiqing Luo's pupils contracted slightly. The hand which was on Little Nine's back gently brushed past the soft white fur on its back. Other than Diamo Xian, no one else could sit on Little Nine's back. But, from the first time she met Little Nine, she had been accepted by Little Nine. Was it because of Diamo Xian? Why did she have a feeling that she had been reserved by Diamo Xian right from the start? Just thinking about it made her a little shy. Ah Feng's words once again shocked the surrounding onlookers. Other than the Overlord, no one else could sit on the noble nine-tailed fox's back. But Yiqing Luo was automatically rolled onto the back by the nine-tailed fox. This was enough to show how much the Overlord valued her. What is the relationship between Yi family's 7th Miss and the Overlord? I heard that they are master and disciple, but this feeling doesn't seem like master and disciple. Yes, 7th Miss. Didn't she set a marriage agreement with Duke Ping, but her sister stole her away? It's only been a few days and yes, 7th Miss and the Overlord. As they discussed, the discussion changed the topic. Not knowing who started it, someone actually started to compare Yiqing Jian and Yiqing Luo. Yiqing Jian's slutty behavior had spread far and wide. These surrounding crowd all believed that Yi family's young miss and Yiqing Jian were slutty. But because of the Overlord's face, they didn't say it out loud. Yiqing Luo laughed lightly as she dug her ears. Her half-squinted eyes reflected a sharp blade as she looked at the commoners who were gathering below. The relationship between me and the Overlord has nothing to do with you. If this mouth only knows how to make irresponsible remarks, then I don't mind leading my brothers to seal your mouths tightly. Her sonorous and powerful voice was extremely dignified. Every single word was like a huge bell, striking heavily on their eardrums, their hearts. The surrounding 100 miles around heavenly fortune fell into silence. The silence that surrendered to Yiqing Luo's majestic aura. Yiqing Luo scoffed and patted Little Nine's back. Little Nine, let's go. As his voice fell, a stream of chi rose from Little Nine's 4 limbs. In the blink of an eye, he had already leaped into the sky, turned into a white shadow, and disappeared from everyone's line of sight. At this moment, Ah Feng glanced sideways at the hyperfound class students and finally stopped at Lu Xuelan. Lu Xuelan's entire body trembled. She was terrified and her eyes were filled with shock. However, Ah Feng only paused for a few breaths before looking away. Lord Di Zun asked me to tell you to bring our drunk brothers back to the attic to have a good rest. After saying this, Ah Feng turned around and jumped down from the first floor, leaving the Tianfuan directly. Everyone was shocked. What did these people have to do with the Overlord? Why does it feel like they have a very close relationship with the Overlord? Shengguan Fang Yi, who had previously suspected that they were students of the devil class, also turned pale. So, these people were all Diamo Xian's men. It was Diamo Xian who had sent people from the Imperial Palace to form a team for Yiqing Luo. Qiao Jin and the others were first stunned, as they didn't understand what was going on. Their brains spun and they immediately understood the Overlord's intention. If the hyperfound Class 2 students found out that they were students of the Devil class, then the Academy would definitely take notice of the Devil class. If before the interclass competition, the director forcefully allocated them into different classes, then all the hard work that the Devil class had put in for so many years would be meaningless. Rather than being guessed that they were students of the Devil class, it would be better to be misunderstood as people from the Imperial Palace. In this way, at least in future when they accepted the mercenary group's missions, they wouldn't need to think of ways to hide. Chapter 494. Little Nine came to a stop in a garden filled with beautiful flowers. Yiqing Luo had never been to this place before. As far as the eye could see, there were all kinds of flowers blooming brilliantly. The air was filled with the fragrance of flowers. When Yiqing Luo turned back, Little Nine's figure was no longer by her side. Yiqing Luo surveyed the surroundings and there wasn't a single figure in sight. What was Diamo Xian up to? Yiqing Luo pursed her lips and was about to follow the path ahead to look for Diamo Xian. Suddenly she felt a weight on her shoulder, and a warm body completely wrapped around her in his arms. That fresh and elegant sandalwood scent, mixed with the fresh floral scent, seeped into her nose and was especially intoxicating. It was just a day of not seeing each other. When she felt the warmth of the man behind her, Yiqing Luo actually had a kind of... The empty space in her heart was filled up. Satisfied. Extremely satisfied. Obviously. It wasn't the first time they had not met for such a long time. But this time she missed him so much. Perhaps it was because this time she was the one who made Diamo leave. Not knowing why, Yiqing Luo's eyes were slightly red and the tip of her nose was a little sour. She bit her lips and struggled to turn around from the man's arms. Raising her head, a pair of watery eyes stared deeply at the man's peerless face. This look made Yiqing Luo stunned. His face was as handsome as usual. His eyes were glistening, suffused with a current that could take one's soul away. But, not knowing why, Yiqing Luo felt that there was a trace of exhaustion between his brows. A very, very light exhaustion. This kind of him looked extremely lazy. Seeing Yiqing Luo staring at him in a daze, Diamo Xian's thin lips curled up as his fingertips caressed Yiqing Luo's face. "Why looking at me in a daze?" His deep voice was sexy and magnetic. Like a feather, constantly teasing Yiqing Luo's heart. "I thought, you are angry with me and not willing to talk to me." Yiqing Luo hugged his waist and buried her face in his chest. Diamo Xian's large palm covered the back of Yiqing Luo's head as his thin lips curled into an even more seductive arc. "I also thought I would be angry with you." The hand which he circled around Yiqing Luo's waist increased in strength. He thought he would be angry. He was angry that when Yiqing Luo made the decision, she had never thought about his feelings. He was angry that Yiqing Luo didn't listen to his advice and insisted on taking the risk. He was angry that Yiqing Luo didn't care about her own safety, making him worried but helpless. He was angry, but he could not bear to be angry. The moment he forcefully stopped Yiqing Luo from accepting the mission and turned around to leave, he regretted it. But Diamo Xian knew that if he were to turn back, Yiqing Luo would not hesitate to choose to proceed with the mission immediately. "You're too competitive." Diamo Xian sighed softly as his 5 fingers plunged into Yiqing Luo's hair, as his fingertips gently caressed her hair. "I know, even if I really stopped you from going to Death God Castle, your heart is still unable to let go of this mission." Yiqing Luo pursed her lips and had no words to refute. Indeed. In order to not let Diamo Xian worry, she could give up this task. But in her heart, she could not truly let go of this task. In her world, there was no such thing as giving up. Perhaps it could be said that she had never met anyone who could make her give up on her decision. "If you're unhappy, I can." Yiqing Luo buried her head and rubbed against his chest. It was just a mission, it could not be compared to Diamo Xian. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.